broadcast the whole time?
So this is being broadcast?
Fire Marshal, we good?
Just gotta check the hallway.
Mr. Fire Marshal, we good? We're good? We're good. Please rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. The purpose of this meeting is to hear an application of the Major Sardi. Since this is a religious application, questions about the timing and the intensity of the use are appropriate, and as are questions about the type of events to be held on the site. However, questions or comments about religious beliefs, stereotypes, political opinions, and current events are not relevant to this application and will not be permitted. I would like to remind everybody that we are neighbors in Saraville. We shop in the same stores. We use the same parks. Our children and grandchildren go to the same schools. We're a diverse community. It is appropriate to have questions to express the concerns of the land use application. I want to remind everybody to be respectful of each other. The hearing is being recorded and a transcript will be created. The words said here tonight will be recorded for all times. While passion can certainly run high when residents are concerned about changes in residential zones, however, the changes may affect the quality of life. I do not want anybody to say anything they may regret. Additionally, the board can only allow relevant questions and comment to part of the record. So the only thing that's going to be allowed on the record is the testimony that their professionals are going to give and ours, and then the comments by you at the end. Does everybody understand that? Mr. Sachs, the floor is yours.
Do a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have a sunshine law.
We need a, Beth, has this been advertised in accordance with the Public Meetings Act?
Yes, Chairman, it has.
I'll ask for a roll call now.
Mr. Hakevich?
Here.
Mr. Allegra?
Here.
Mr. Bolton?
Here.
Mr. Elmeyer? Ms. Larman? Here. Mr. Mueller?
Here.
Mr. Shaw? Here. Councilman Zabrowski? Chairman Tai?
Here.
Mr. Cornell?
Here.
Mr. Fowler?
Here.
Mr. Sordillo?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Communications agenda.
None this evening.
Need the minutes from, pass the minutes from.
Nope, no minutes this evening.
Minutes? Okay. Site plan subdivision.
This evening, we have Mashjar Sedar Community Center House of Worship Site Plan, 216 Ernston Road, Parland, Block 444, lots 23, 24, 25, and 28.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board professionals, members of the board. Lawrence Sachs, on behalf of the applicant, Masjid Sadar. This property is located at block 444.04. It's lots 23, 24, 25, and 28. It is located on the north side of Ernston Road. It is approximately 2.49 acres. It's located in your R7 zone. This is a conditional use and site plan application. It's before you as a conditional use because the applicant satisfies all of the conditional use requirements set forth in the ordinance. Presently on this property, there are several structures which are proposed to be demolished, and our engineer will testify to that this evening. And what we're going to be proposing is a 3-story, 44,391 square foot house of worship with associated site improvements. And again, my engineer will describe that in detail. There are approximately 109 parking spaces proposed, 64 of which will be underground. The building itself will consist of prayer halls for both men and women. There is also proposed a basketball court, a small exercise area separately for men and women, men and women's locker rooms, kitchens, bathrooms, male and women's ablution rooms. and my engineer will describe, or the architect will describe what those are. Classrooms, offices, and storage areas. This facility will obviously serve an existing house of worship, which is presently operating out of the Madison Park Firehouse in Old Bridge. It's been there for some time. It was located at this site previously. However, it is no longer there now. But if this board acts favorably, there'll be a new construction and the congregation will move back to this facility. I'm sorry?
We can't hear you.
I'll try to speak a little bit louder. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And obviously, it's going to serve the parishioners of the Masjid Sadar Mosque. Just a couple things I want to state for the record, just operationally, just to clear some things up here, which were contained in some of the reports that we received from the staff. The ritual activities, which will occur on weekdays and on Fridays, will not operate at the same time that any other facilities are being utilized on site. So, for instance, the basketball facility, the basketball court will not be utilized while there's ritual activities. The classrooms will not be utilized while there's ritual activities, except for Sunday school. So I think I just want to put that on the record. As well, let me just give a little bit of background about the hours of operation and the timing of the daily prayers. The hours of operation are proposed to be from 6 a.m. To 8:30 p.m. There are daily prayers that occur 5 times a day. They will occur at approximately 6 a.m., 1 p.m., 3:30 p.m., 5:30 p.m., and 8 p.m. That gets adjusted based on the season because it's based on when the moon is rising and the sun is setting. And at those particular prayers, you'll hear testimony, but it's approximately 20 to 30 attendees at those daily prayers. The Friday prayers will occur 12:15 to 12:45, 1:15 to 1:45. So there are 2 separate prayer services, and generally there's between 80 and 120 attendees at those particular prayer services. The school activities, there is an after-school activity for prayer study for the children. That occurs between 5 and 6 p.m. on Monday through Thursday. It will not occur on Friday, and it will not occur on the weekends. And there's a Sunday school which occurs from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. In terms of employees, there's minimal employees at this site. There'll be a clerical employee, full-time clerical employee, a custodian, and an imam, who is the ritual clergy leader for the mosque. There will be no outdoor activities or festivals which will occur. All of the activities and functions in this mosque will occur inside. There will be no call to prayer that will be emitted from this particular building. So all activities will be contained within the building. Couple other points. There is a family night which occurs on the second Friday of each month. The hours of that are from 7 to 8:30, and generally there's 90 to 100 attendees. Weddings will occur on Saturdays, usually late afternoon around 4 p.m. It would generally just be family and friends. They're usually not largely attended, and there is no receptions that will occur on site. So there'll be no wedding receptions on site. Funerals. There will be occasional funerals at the mosque, just like you would have it at any other house of worship. They will utilize a prep room as part of their ritual. And generally, you probably have 60 to 100 attendees. If it's a well-beloved person, it might be 100. And lastly, for Ramadan and for Eid. Ramadan, as you know, we're actually in Ramadan right now. But the services would be from 7 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. They will use a shuttle bus to bring people back and forth so that the parking lot will never exceed capacity for Ramadan. And again, that will run on a regular basis. And we will provide some type of holiday and special event plan to the board, Mr. Chairman, so that it's quite clear. All right, we'll provide that at the next meeting.
Where are they going to shuttle people from?
Well, presently, they're using the Sam Cell School. All right, so, and we'll work out something with respect to that, but we'll have a firm Ramadan and Eid plan in place, and that'll be in writing. And in terms of Eid, presently, they conduct it at Kennedy Park when the weather's good, and when the weather is not good, they have the good graces of using the Sayreville War Memorial High School. So, and that's been ongoing for a number of years now, and that will continue in the future as well. So they will not be utilizing this site for Eid. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to cover a couple of the points that were contained in some of the staff reports and just get those issues out of the way. I do have 2 witnesses this evening, and I also, Mr. Shamir, who is one of the property owners of the property, would like to talk about the mission of the Masjid Sadar. So I'm going to turn it over to him in a second. But I do have my engineer, Mr. Adnan Khan from AWZ Engineering, and he will be testifying as to the engineering layout. He'll go over all the engineering details. He'll go over all of the site improvements that are proposed. Certainly, he'll be available for any board questions, any professionals' questions. And we also have our architect here this evening, Mr. Joseph Javier, and he will provide he will describe what the building will look like. We have several elevations. We have floor plans. So we hope to get through all of that testimony this evening. I'm not sure if we will, based upon the slight delay in the meeting, but I do appreciate the board proceeding forward. I think most of the people who left were probably supporters of the mosque, but that's okay, because you know, they'll certainly have an opportunity to be heard. All right, so with that said, Mr. Chairman, if I can just have Mr. Shamir sworn in, and he just wants to make a mission statement about the...
a question, Mr. Sachs?
Sure.
Go ahead. Mr. Sachs, according to our engineers report, the applicant provided attendee counts for different prayers. Friday prayer was listed as 120 to 180.
Yeah.
You reported 80 to 120.
Yeah, that's total. That's total. The 180 is total. So usually it averages about 80 to 90 to 100. So,
But 120 to 180 was reported
yeah, no, I understand that. But we're talking about total attendees for the 2 services.
for the 2 services. Okay. And then for regular prayer, it was reported 30 to 60 by the applicant. You mentioned 20 to 40. Just curious to know what the disparity is.
Really no disparity. I could tell you that, and I took it as an average because I think the 6 a.m. service usually has about 5 people, and maybe the evening service has some more. But certainly we're gonna tie that into the traffic testimony because certainly I'm sure that's what everyone wants to hear. We'll tie that into the traffic testimony as well, sir.
Could you please confirm the family night time, because it was reported 7 to 8 p.m. and you said 8:30 p.m. was the end?
No, 7 to 8. Oh,
7
7, it might be 8:30. Yeah.
Don't know. That was all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let him swear you in.
Say your name and your address.
Shamir Sadar, 147 Jackson Avenue, Parlin, New Jersey. I'm the president of the...
Sorry, I just have to swear you in. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that your testimony tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Correct.
Thank you.
So before I start, I say, salams, peace be unto you, and good night. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the Planning Board, I stand before you today to advocate for the approval of the proposed masjid. As we all are aware, the beauty of Sayreville lies in its rich diversity. Amongst the Sayreville population live 1,600 plus Muslims that needs a masjid. It's our place of worship, a home for minds to grow, hearts to thrive together, and souls to be nourished. It is a haven that fosters the beloved teachings of Islam, following the tradition of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Islam has always been a religion that exists within a community and is not separation, and not in separation. It cannot exist alone because values such as good company, encouraging goodness, striving to spread truth, and much other will not happen in isolations. For example, the reward we are given for praying in congregation is 70 times greater than praying alone. This project is not just a place of worship. It's a symbol of unity and community development. Our intention is to create a space that cultivates understanding, inclusivity, and collaboration amongst diverse backgrounds. The mosque will not only serve as the spiritual need of the Cerebral community, but also provide educational and social programs. Our essential prayer service include our 5 daily prayers, as our attorney Larry Sachs mentioned, which happen before sunrise, at midday, mid-afternoon, sunset, and night. The Friday prayer is the most important one because that's when the congregants come out mostly. The sermon, which is split into 2 sermons because of the amount of people. Also, we have the Ramadan night prayers, which is happening right now at the Samsal School. The Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha are the 2 major holidays of the year, and we keep that in JFK Park, which are both held at JFK Park, and also we do have the Janazah, the funeral prayers. Our education programs include the Sunday school, women Quran classes, men Arabic classes, children's story time, monthly family nights, weekly youth study, homework help, and career development workshop. Our social programs include sharing of turkeys on Thanksgiving, holiday greetings, gifts to our respected neighbors and public safety departments, conducting health screening, breast cancer awareness sessions, hunger relief food packages, and the Cerebral Day booth where we got the opportunity to meet and greet the broader Cerebral community. It was a day where we met so many friendly faces, wrote their names in Arabic, and introduced our religion and Quran to many. Doing so allowed us to break down walls and stigmas and instead build bridges and bonds. We have engaged with professional architects and city planners to ensure the design align with the local artistic and regulations. We are committed to addressing any concerns and being proactive in contributing positively to the surrounding environment. I urge the planning board to consider the broader impact this project will have on promoting harmony and shared value within our community. Thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you again very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shamir. Actually, before I even start, Mr. Sordillo, and I probably should have asked you in the beginning, I know we provided you with notice, affidavit of publication. We do have jurisdiction for this.
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank
Yes, I
you.
reviewed that. It was acceptable.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman, I guess my first witness will be Mr. Adnan Khan from AWZ Engineering.
Bring him up and have him sworn
Yep,
in.
I will.
Evening.
Good evening.
Hi. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please just state your name for the record.
Adnan Khan, Khan, from AWZ Engineering, and I'm the project engineer for this project.
Can you give us your credentials?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, master's degree in construction management from NJIT, testified in front of federal court, superior court, and over hundreds of boards throughout New Jersey as an expert witness, licensed professional engineer in multiple states, doing this probably over 34, 35 years now.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept his credentials.
I have a second.
Thank you.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Mr. Khan, why don't you go over to the easel board, because I'm sure you're going to refer to some of the exhibits that are there. And I believe, I'm not sure we have to mark this, Mr. Chairman, that's part of the submission, but I'll have Mr. Khan refer to any specific pages as he goes on.
If you could just, if you're going to a specific page in the plan, but if these are the plans that were submitted to the board already as part of the application packet, then we don't have to mark those individually.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Khan, if you could briefly describe current conditions and what's being proposed.
Yeah. First of all, these plans are the exact same plans that were submitted to the board, and they are last revised November 30th, 2023. Okay, the first sheet is like basically just our cover sheet, like location where it shows the zoning, where the project is located, which zone, and again, as Mr. Sachs mentioned before, is in R7 zone residential. We have a text map, and of course, we have a zoning map. We do comply, this project do comply with all the bulk requirements. We are not seeking any bulk variances for this project. It's fully compliant. We are seeking some design waivers and variances, and of course, the parking variance. And as I'm going to go through my testimony, I'm going to highlight those items. Sheet CO2 is our demolition plan or existing conditions plan. This sheet depicts the way the site is currently in a current condition. And there are multiple structures. Two of them are like single family homes. And I believe there is one existing office / apartment use on the building. Totally, I mean, in total, there are 4 lots with multiple structures throughout. The general topography of the site is like that site drains from to south to west. The high point is toward the rear of the property, and everything drains towards either to west side or to the south on Ernston Road. Ernston Road, again, is a county road, and it's under county jurisdiction. And throughout this process, we've been involved with county as far as submitting the site plans to them, having their comments, feedback, revising, and Mr. Cornell was part of those meetings as well, as far as the coordination with the county.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Sure. I think you indicated that the last revision date of the plans was November. Is that what you said?
November 20th, 2023.
So I think the plans that the board has last revised October. So I just wanted to clarify the dates.
You know what? Yes, I think I got the old one, but I have the new ones in my car. If you guys give me 5 minutes, I can get it. Yeah, so,
The revision.
Yeah. Or if you can have it, I mean, there is not much changes. I think the only changes were based on the county comments. Like as far as the driveways, the plan, the layout, the parking, everything is the same.
We have October 25th, 2023 is the last revision that was submitted to the board.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing in your report as well, Jay.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there were some revisions made
Based on the
county comments,
Based on the
which I can have him get into.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if
Yeah, I think-
there is a revised, we can utilize that and mark, well, the quick answer is we mark it as an exhibit and then we move
That's
forward.
fine.
Yeah, we can mark this as an exhibit, yes.
So we'll mark the entire
A1.
set of plans as A1. And if you could just, I know you've kind of identified it, but since we're marking an exhibit, if you could just identify it for the record, so it's clear that, you know, what we're looking at and the revisions of those plans that are now Exhibit A1.
Sure. Again, we are looking at the preliminary and final site plans prepared by AWZ Engineering. Last date is November 30th, 2023 as an exhibit. And just for clarification, this set of plan is based on the last county comments in which the only change was like to provide a no right turn sign. Otherwise, everything else is exactly the same as in the previous
And it
plans.
also has, sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Sure.
It has 23 pages in total?
That is correct.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
All right, so I was going over the existing site, as I mentioned, is like the idea. The idea here is like we're going to demolish all the existing structures and going to propose a new masjid structure. And I'm going to go over the site plan as we go to that sheet. And
Hey, Mr. Khan, I apologize, just so we're all clear, when you do go to a sheet that has been revised beyond that what was submitted, can you just identify that? Any sheet that was revised to the November 30th, just so it's very clear for the record.
Sure,
I
yes.
know it's a little bit of a hassle, but I appreciate that.
No, that's fine. So CO1 is the same, CO2 is the same. And now
You can just do it as you go through it.
Okay.
You don't have to go through them all now.
Sheet CO3 is site development plans, but this is just like the basement. But again, it shows the first floor improvements also. So I'm going to use this sheet as an overall site plan, what the client is proposing here, or the applicant is proposing. So as I mentioned, Ernston Road is a county road, and it's situated to the south of the properties or the lots. So what we are proposing is approximately 44,000 total floor area between the multiple floors. And of course, the architect is going to go in detail as far as the distribution and the program of the building. Parking, I believe the parking was one of the major issues. So what we did is like for the basement plan, we are proposing as you enter, first of all, these two driveways are full access driveways. You can come in through the driveways or you can leave from those driveways. And again, as I mentioned, and the county made us some revisions, and I'm going to mention as we go along on that sheet. However, so if you enter from Ernstine Road, you have a ramp towards the east of that parking area that goes down into the basement level, where we are proposing 64 parking spaces. Out of those 64, it's a combination of handicap as well as regular parking spaces. And handicap spaces are van accessible as required by the ADA regulations. So it's fully compliant parking as far as the ADA. So the ramp takes you into the basement level where you can park. And again, it's a full circulation. The cars can circulate freely all around the basement area. And then they have an exit coming out of the same ramp, and they can take any of the driveways, either the one to the east or one to the west, to exit the site. Sheet C-04 is the site plan for the first floor. Okay, now in this sheet, you will see like you don't see the parking in the basement because that's the reason we separate that out. This shows the first floor utilization of the building where we have basketball court and some other, and I'm going to leave it to the architects to go over those details. But the first floor, we are proposing 45 parking spaces on the ground level. So if you recall, we have 64 parking spaces in the basement through the ramp. And now the first floor is the ground parking, 45 parking spaces at the ground level. The idea,
Mr. Khan, when you say first floor, we're talking about surface parking.
Surface.
Okay, not on the first floor, but on the surface.
Sorry, yes,
Okay.
the surface parking at the ground level. Yes. The circulation is the same. Again, those two driveways will be incorporated as far as coming into the property and circulating, finding a space and leaving either through eastern driveway or the western driveway. Now, this is this sheet that we made the change from the original, and it's been, I believe, in a revision column, it's revision number 4, dated 11/29/23, based on the county comment. And again, as I mentioned, throughout this process, we've been involved with the county in every aspect as far as the traffic counts, the traffic circulation, the site designing, distance between the driveways, the orientation of the driveways, how far the driveways should be from the property, where the landscaping should be. So there was a very detailed coordination between the county and the design team went through this whole process. And this is the final layout that the county approved with a condition, and that's the condition that we changed on this plan is they don't want a full access left turn or right turn from the western driveway. They want it to make it right only turn from the western driveway going out to Ernstine Road. So in other words, the cars won't be able to make a left turn on Ernstine. So that was the only change. And then this sheet shows that addition of that sign, no left turn, added to this sheet. So that was the only change we did. And again, we did get a preliminary approval from the county for this project. Again, there are some comments that we need to address. Some of them are comments that we need to do as part of the resolution compliance, and then the county will issue. But we have a preliminary approval from the county for this project to build this project based on the configuration it's shown. Sheet CO5 grading plan. Again, it's a basement plan, but it also shows grading on the ground level as well. So again, the idea here is like we are trying to keep the same grading as same drainage pattern as the site currently exists, like everything flowing towards Ernstine Road and to the western property line. However, currently there is no stormwater management at the site from any of these lots. So any water that runs off from the site It just runs off either surface runoff towards the Ernston Road drainage system or towards the adjacent properties to the west. So again, one of the sheets when I'm going to go over, I'm going to show like for this project is classified as a major development as per the NJDEP requirements. And as most of you know, like just last year, there were the rules and regulations were updated for major developments, and they're made much more stringent as far as what we can do, provide green infrastructure, quantity reductions, and all that stuff. So we are complying with that. Again, there are some questions that we are working with the CME on those things, those stormwater comments. But in the most, I mean, those are minor housekeeping comments that I think we can easily easily resolve as far as accept those conditions as a condition of approval and agree to comply with those requirements. However, the drainage, as I mentioned, is pretty much the same pattern, everything. We did incorporate an above ground detention as well as underground detention, and I'm going to explain that once I'm going to go to the grading. Again, you'll see a lot of these circles. These are the trees proposed landscaping that we are proposing along the perimeter of the site. I believe, and I have the number and I'm going to go over the numbers, how many we are proposing the trees. But the idea is we are scattering all these landscaping, which consist of deciduous as well as evergreen trees throughout the property along the perimeter. And the idea there is to buffer the building, the parking area, as well as provide some green infrastructure and greenery to the project. Sheet CO7, again, this is our utility plan. It says basement, but the first floor, it also shows our detention basin. So looking at the detention basin, as I mentioned, it's a combination of underground infiltration system and above ground detention system. This system, I mean, this is a major project, so by DEP requirements, we have to reduce the runoffs for 2-year, 10-year, and 100-year storm, which we are based on the volume that we are proposing for the pipe system that will be in the pavement. We'll be not only reducing the detention, we are also promoting, and again, this is one of the comments that CME has that about this above ground detention is not considered as green infrastructure. However, I just differ a little bit is like it is as part of the BMP manual. Above ground and underground infiltration systems are part of a green infrastructure. And again, that's something we can always talk about it once if this project gets the approval and we do the resolution compliance plans. However, and then again, there is a filtration system that's also a requirement that any water that is from automobile surfaces has to be cleaned first before it hits the infiltration system. So we are proposing an infiltration system as well. So the way we propose the inlets and the collection points throughout the site, all this water first comes to a filtration system from where it passes through into the infiltration system before it gets infiltrated into the ground. One other comment in the CME report was the soil investigation. We did perform the soil investigation, and in the last stormwater report, it was made part as an appendix. However, just to let the board know, like the soils at the site, we did quite a comprehensive soil investigation at the site. The soils at the site, what we call is like K3, K4 type soils, which are good permeable soils, which can facilitate the infiltration that is required for this BMP or for this stormwater system to work efficiently. So most of the soils are like K3 and K4 type soils. Okay, so then a few sheets, CO9 and CO10 is our traffic circulation. And again, this was one of the county's comment. They want us to run the circulation for fire trucks, garbage trucks, passenger cars, or any box trucks So we showed them the circulation pattern, like for a fire truck, how the fire truck can access freely all around the building and the parking area. The garbage truck, same thing, like how they can circulate around the site. And the same thing for passenger cars as well as the box trucks. Okay, landscape plan. We are proposing, and I'm just going to read the numbers, approximately 37 shade trees, 52 evergreen trees, and 482 shrubs, which is a lot as part of the landscaping plan that we are presenting here. Again, the trees are along the perimeter of the property. As I mentioned, is like to enhance the buffer as well as to create a division line between building and the parking area from the adjacent properties. And again, the shrubbery is all around, like to, of course, like to increase the aesthetics of the overall site and the building.
Mr. Khan, before you leave landscaping, there is a buffer that's required in this zone. And what is that buffer?
50 foot.
All right, and we're complying with that?
We are complying with
All
that,
right,
yes.
so on that plan, you're showing a buffer from the rear property line to the nearest point of any building, which is 50 feet.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have the lighting plan. Again, this is the basement lighting plan. The light fixtures are picked up like low. They're all LED light fixtures. Not very warm colored. Okay, so very soft colors, like probably 3000 K, their intensity. But again, in the basement area, we have the light fixtures, all ceiling mounted light fixtures, and they have enough illumination that provides safe and secure circulation for the patrons in the basement area. Similarly, sheet C-13 shows the lighting on the ground level or the surface parking area. It's a combination of light fixtures on the building, accent light fixture, decorative light fixtures, and downward throw light poles along the perimeter of the parking area. Again, all these light fixtures we selected, they are all downward throw, fully shielded. So it's not something that can glow and, annoying fixtures that can bug the neighbors or anything. Everything is downward and fully shielded, and they are LED fixtures. And the way the intensities are shown on the plans, and then the way we designed it, by the time these light fixtures intensities reaches to the property line, they're almost zero. So it's not something that we are basically encroaching into any adjacent property with any spillage. So basically, the way it's been designed, it's like zero spillage, only shining on the property, and again, downward throw and full cutoff light fixtures.
All right, in terms of lighting, Mr. Khan, when the facility closes for the evening, the lights are going to go out.
Except for safety and security lights.
Security lighting, which may be by motion detector or some other form. All right, and in terms of light spillage, just to clarify again, we're complying with the ordinance requirement of no light spillage past the property line. Is that correct?
That is correct,
okay.
Yes. And then I just printed out this sheet C-16. And the reason is that we are proposing a monument sign. There is a variance involved with this monument sign. It's not the area or the size, it's the location of where this monument sign will be on the property. According to the code, the monument sign has to be 50% of the front yard, which is 50-foot front yard. So it has to be at a 25 feet from the right-of-way line. However, we are proposing at 12.5 feet because the way Ernston Road in that area is like the visibility, just because of the visibility, so that the people driving on Ernston Road can see the sign and see the masjid. So that's the variance associated with the sign. However, we are complying with the height, we are complying with the sign square footage, everything is in conformance with the zoning requirements. I think that's pretty much my direct. I can take any questions.
Well, let me just, before we take any questions from the board, let me just go over a few more things. What about deliveries on site? What types of trucks would be making any deliveries here? And is there a loading area? And if you could testify as to that.
Yeah, my understanding here is like the maximum size trucks that we anticipate at the site is like box truck deliveries or delivery vans.
Okay.
Beside that, it's all passenger cars. Like, and again, my understanding is like FedEx and UPS type of trucks.
Okay. And as a result of that, do we need a loading area?
We do, per the requirement, per the code, we do need 3 loading areas. However, we are not proposing because those trucks can easily fit into any of the parking space, or if need to be, like most of the time when they're coming. One thing we have to understand, the peak or the busiest time at this masjid will be Friday afternoon or Ramadan evenings. Otherwise, or Sunday maybe a little bit. Otherwise, you're not talking about people coming in and out. So even the parking, the way we design the parking, everything is directed towards that one event, Friday afternoon prayers, because there's the peak generator of the parking. Beside that, you will find probably 5, 10, 15 cars maximum at any given time. So there's a lot of plenty of parking available throughout the site.
All right. So based upon the fact that the only deliveries which would occur on site would occur from passenger vehicles, a box truck or a FedEx or Amazon van, you're asking for a waiver of a requirement for a loading area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Talk about refuse. How are we going to handle refuse and recycling?
Go back to our sheet C-04. We do as you come in from the eastern driveway from Ernston Road, just before the bend, we are proposing a solid waste and recycling area where we have bins for both trash as well as recyclables. So the idea there, and I think it's one of the circulation plan where we showed the circulation for the garbage truck. The garbage truck can easily come in here. They can pull up the bins, load, unload, and then they have a lot of choices to leave the site. So it's a very direct approach of picking up and leaving the site for garbage or recyclables.
All right. I know we didn't really talk about utilities. Can you talk about how the water service will occur and how sanitary sewer service? And I'm assuming we have all available utilities, but if you can at least touch on water and sewer.
Sure. All utilities will be brand new utilities because of the size of the building and the use. New water, I believe this building is fire sprinkler, but I will leave it to the architect to confirm that. But we have a fire service line, we have water line, we will have sanitary line, of course, gas, electric, everything, all brand new lights.
Okay. All right, let me just go over. I know, I'm not going to go over your report, but I just want to go over a couple, maybe perhaps waivers that we're seeking here as well. All right, Mr. Conniff, do you have a copy of the report from
Yes.
Mr. Cornell? All right. Again, I don't want to go over all of it. We'll do that at the appropriate time.
I think there are a couple of things that I highlighted if you want.
Yeah, let me just go through them, and yeah, if there's something I missed, you can tell me. I think in terms of the sanitary sewer flow calculations, those were actually on the plan. Is that correct?
Yes, for the building, and however, there is a comment that Mr. Cornell wants us to break down based on the use, the total demand. Which again, when you will hear the testimony, like the way the building is structured, like it's not going to have multiple uses at any given time. It's going to be the primary use is the religious services, the prayers. So when that's happening, nothing else happens. Everything is pretty much like shut down. So, but I think the comment is like to break down the use per uses the sanitary. So that's something we can show that that's not a problem.
All right, and how about the water?
The same thing, yes, we can do that too.
Okay, and in terms of the storm sewer system, I think you already made a comment about the fact that you believe it is a certified green infrastructure. the Kraken filter?
The Kraken filter plus the infiltration, and that's something, those are like minor housekeeping comments that we can work with Mr. Cornell's office, and I don't see any issues as far as resolving any of those comments.
Okay. I'm going to go over to landscaping and lighting. Certainly, if there's additional landscaping required, we can accommodate that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of waivers,
Just before we jump to the
Yeah.
next, like for parking lot improvement, and item F, number 3. I believe there's a recommendation to have a sidewalk connecting the building to Ernston Road. Believe that was at some point, my understanding was discussed with the county, and they don't want to encourage people walking along Ernston Road. So that was one of the reason that I think the CME's comment is to connect somehow the building with the sidewalk, but they don't want they want to discourage people from walking on because it's a very busy road. So, but again, if the town wants and the county accepts it, applicant has no issue providing one.
yeah, we can provide that certainly if that's one of the conditions. Let's talk about parking lot improvements because I know we'll talk about parking lot improvements because there's a couple issues raised by Mr. Cornell as to whether or not we're seeking a waiver. One of them is a restriction on on-site parking in the front yard setback. If you could just comment on that, we're seeking a waiver of that?
That is correct.
And
yes.
why is that?
Because parking in the front yard is not permitted.
No, I understand that, but in terms of the layout that you have, we need to provide obviously sufficient parking.
Correct.
Is that going to pose any site triangle issues by having the parking in the front yard area?
No, we made sure it's not, and I think there was also one comment from the county while we were designing it. They want us to push the parking a little bit more to the north or inside because originally when we had it, like we had the parking closer to Ernston. So the county made us push this at least 25 feet from the property line, and that's what the plan is now reflects.
Okay. What about we're asking for a waiver of sidewalks along access driveways and aisles. Can you comment upon the safety features that are incorporated into this plan with respect to the pedestrian safety in the parking lot?
Yeah, that is again, there are requirement for sidewalks and islands between the parking. As I mentioned, the busiest time, and again, of course, our traffic engineer is going to get into more detail about the parking. The busiest time is the Friday afternoon prayers. So usually it is my understanding that the applicant has monitors during those services to direct the traffic. So I believe that's why I think that the waiver that we are seeking is because those monitors will help people who will be parking in the spaces to guide them through to safely travel from the parking to the building.
All right, and we have 2 services, is that correct?
That is correct,
Okay,
yes.
and our traffic engineer can address that at the next meeting.
That is correct.
All right. Another waiver request is, well, we have head-to-head parking spaces, is that correct?
That's right.
All right, and again, traffic engineer can address that?
That is correct,
All right.
yes.
And I think we spoke about a waiver for the loading space based on your testimony that deliveries are by box truck, passenger vehicle. You don't feel the need for a designated loading area.
Right.
All right. Let's talk about, if you can turn to page 6 of 9 of Mr. Cornell's report, paragraph 6. We're asking for a waiver regarding the deceleration lane. If you could just briefly go into that real quickly.
Yeah, I believe that's a requirement, but however, that was also discussed with the county, and the county doesn't want any deceleration. They looked at it very carefully, the comment from the town itself, but they decided not to provide any, and so that's why we are not proposing any.
Okay. All right, traffic, I'm going to reserve for the traffic engineer. Okay, I'm not going to go into traffic this evening, so we'll reserve that. All right, so Mr. Khan, basically the waivers that we're seeking are the waivers you.
Again, I spoke this morning, before, we're not speaking about the traffic tonight because we asked for another study. We got the study, we have to review it before we can act on it. So if you're here to talk about parking, it's not happening tonight. That'll all come out, the date of the study, the date that we had the study done, what times the studies were done, they'll all be online, you can look at them. But until we're all on apples and apples, we can't do that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just if I can,
What? Mr. Sachs has the floor.
yeah, if I can just address it. We have provided a traffic study. I'll just addressing it to the public. Can I please, let me just finish. All right.
Hey, you. If you want the floor, you have to stand up and I have to give it to you. We're not going to have people shouting over each other. Mr. Sachs, you have the floor.
Thank you. Traffic study was provided. In fact, we also did another traffic study, probably in the beginning of March as well. I believe the traffic study that your chairman is referring to is a traffic study, an analysis that your board wanted to have of our particular traffic study.
So we can look at the two of them.
And that's why we're not covering traffic tonight. Okay.
Hang on. Go ahead.
All right. I just wanted to clarify. We have provided 2 traffic studies, and we're just waiting, obviously, for the board to review a traffic study by its independent traffic engineer.
We're going to see the difference between the two reports, and you'll be able to see the difference. All right?
Okay.
Hang on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to clarify that point.
All right.
All right. Just
You
to
have anything
continue
else?
on.
No, that's
All
it.
right.
Okay.
Hang on before you go, the board gets a chance. Any questions to the engineer from the board? Anybody have any questions of the engineer?
Mr. Chairman, there's still some items in our report, but I believe Mr. Sack is going to discuss those in the future. So we'll hold our comments at this time.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Khan, in terms of the classrooms that are being proposed, can you speak on the usage, how many students, what time the classes are going to be?
Yeah, I think, Mr. Mueller, I may have mentioned that in the beginning. The classrooms will be utilized after school, so from 5 to 6 p.m. roughly, and that'll just be for prayer study, just like any other religious institution has. We don't anticipate, I mean, we wish we had more children involved, but unfortunately it's maybe 15 or 20 in a classroom. Also on Sunday mornings, they have a Sunday school. That's from 10 to 1. And again, it's probably the same type of attendance. I mean,
How about the basketball courts? Are they going to be open generally except for prayer time, or what's the use?
yeah, I'll comment on that too, Mr. Mueller. Basketball courts are only open for use by the mosque. They're not open to the general public. They will obviously monitor that. They'll presumably utilize them in hours when the ritual activities are not occurring. So certainly they're not going to be on Friday afternoons. Potentially could be, and it probably wouldn't be Friday night either because they have a Friday night family service. But I would imagine it'd probably be used on the weekends, and it may be used over the summer. But again, it's only open to the mosque. It's not open to the general public.
So open to the mosque, but not open during prayer time?
Correct. In fact, none of the activities, and when the architect will testify, we'll describe the layout, but the classrooms, the gymnasium, the locker room, I think there's a small exercise area. None of that will be utilized when there's ritual activities occurring. So when ritual activities are not occurring, they potentially could be utilized.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Go ahead.
This question is for both Mr. Khan and for Mr. Cornell. When calculating sanitary sewer needs, water distribution needs, fire flows for the building, parking area, does the building code allow for scheduled times of uses, or is it of capacity of the building?
You want to go?
I think you have a number of different questions. Sanitary sewer is based upon the occupancy, the potential occupancy of the building, which would be everything. So it would be everything combined.
No schedule does not matter. It's
Or the
full
capacity, correct,
So-
which is why we asked for additional information concerning the design report that was submitted.
So as an example, as a question, the information you read earlier, your opening statement,
Right.
the quantity of people, let's say 40 people for prayer, but the prayer room holds 500. So we're basing our calculations on 500, not 40?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Same thing goes for the other systems? So,
Water calculations are based upon required fire flows, which are a function of the building construction. So formulas that they have to go through and do to confirm that they meet the fire flow requirements that are required based upon the codes. Same thing, not based upon number of people, based upon the building construction
and
itself.
I'm asking for safety purposes. Are we under designing the systems based on a schedule rather than capacity?
It's the capacity, the maximum capacity.
So going back to the, for example, I think the water flow before you mentioned, it was said by Mr. Khan that you were not going to be using all the systems at once because you have different schedules. But that's not how we should be designing it, right? We're designing it based on capacity.
That is correct. Like the system, like let's say Friday afternoon is the peak generator. But again, I think what Mr. Cornell's report says, like he wants us, even at the time, though we said like on Friday afternoon, it's only going to be prayer, everything else will be shut down. But he wants us to design for the other uses also, if they will be in use, so that when we design the pipe size or type and slopes and all that, we make sure that we take into account the maximum possibility.
But I just want to clarify, it's not what you want, it's what the building code requires.
Yeah, correct. That's what the ordinance requires, yes. And that's what our report indicated. I mentioned there were outstanding issues in the report. Those are the type of things, they're technical in nature. The applicants agreed to address them, but if you do act favorably, those would be conditions of approval where they'd have to submit those report and demonstrate that the sanitary sewer can handle all the flow that potentially could be generated by this facility.
Is it fair to say we should see that prior to any type of motion?
That's really a board's decision. If it turns out that you approved it and they could not meet it, technically they wouldn't have an approval. They'd have to come back to you. So you can handle it either way. You can have them come in up front and provide it to you to confirm it, or if it's a condition, because it's technical in nature, a lot of times the board isn't as concerned with that. They'll leave it to the engineers to work out and make sure it's satisfied after approvals are granted.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other members?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Again, to Mr. Cornell. Is it required that emergency vehicle access be needed for the rear of this building?
Mr. Chairman, it's really a function of your fire official, and I think those are comments that are in the report that we want to make sure that they review it and sign off as well. They may want fire lanes called out on the plans. Those are the type of things that your fire official will typically determine. I can't tell you yes or no whether they're going to want rear access or not. That's their decision to make, and that's typically something that they would review after the fact as well, just to make sure that it complies with their requirements. A lot of times the applicants will request it and they don't receive that information. So that's why it's always a condition that they have to get a sign off from that particular department to make sure they're satisfied with it.
And just to add that, like the plans were submitted to the fire department as well. We haven't received comments as of now. So
Okay,
the plans,
but they haven't responded yet.
they haven't responded.
They have not, but I will reach out to them and certainly by the next meeting, see if we can get some
Anybody else?
response.
Mr. Sachs, I have a question.
Sure.
The dirt from where you're going to put the garage underneath, you have the soil taken care of with the county?
We have to, again, it has to comply with all the local, state, federal laws.
All right, so now we're going to have 64 parking spaces underground?
Yes.
What kind of ventilation?
It will be some kind of a mechanical ventilation, but again, that needs to be thought out like during the final construction, but it will be a mechanical, like a
I
louvers
would
or
think
something.
it has to be because you're going to have
Yes.
classrooms above it. Classrooms, everything else is above the parking
And I
garage. My
think it's a code
concern,
requirement too. It has to be ventilated.
Right.
Yes.
how about water in the basement? You're going to pump it out of the basement?
We don't anticipate water in the basement except for.
Okay. I'm quite sure that's not funny if you all had water in your basement, but we'll see.
No,
All right.
you're talking about the rainwater, right?
Rainwater, you have to clean the water off of the top and put it through a filter system. My question is, what's going to happen with the filter system in the basement?
It can be the same thing. It can be a lift station from the basement that can pump into the filtration system or a manhole.
Not shown on the drawings yet? You don't have that, you don't have that figured out?
That's something we will be we'll be developing as part of our construction
Yeah,
documents.
Mr. Chairman, that would be a
Yeah.
construction detail.
Mr. Chairman,
And-
those items are in our report. We
Yeah.
indicate the need to have a soils investigation, soil borings, deal with groundwater issues. That's all something that would have to be addressed.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the excess soil. They would need a permit from the borough to remove that, but we've also, in our report, raised a question about, can you take some of that excess soil and possibly utilize it to
Correct.
create berms, to raise the height of the landscaping, to help screen the facility from the surrounding neighbors? So that's something
Yeah,
that
that's
needs to
something
be
we'll
addressed as
definitely
well.
look into it, yes.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I mean, I would say almost without exception, all of the technical recommendations of Mr. Cornell, we can satisfy. There may be a few that we have to talk about, but we'll do that at the appropriate time after traffic.
Hey, board member, have any questions of the engineer? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Questions. What is the size of the congregation today?
That's for the applicant.
The question was, what's the size of the congregation?
About 300, Mr. Chairman.
Right, the answer is 300.
Excuse me. If I can respond, I mean,
Go ahead. Hang on, let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the comment by Mr. Sadar at the beginning is that there are roughly 1,600 Muslims living in Sayreville. However, they all don't attend this particular mosque. So we have 300. We have a regular membership of 300. Okay. I'm not going to respond to public comments, Mr. Chairman.
But what is there anticipated growth that's going to increase with this,
I doubt
building?
it. I doubt it because I'm sure many of you are familiar that people attend a mosque that might be convenient to them. So in other words, if they work up in Bergen County, that's the mosque they're going to go to on a Friday afternoon.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I can't take members of the public.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just
Yeah.
curious if we can instruct the public not to talk out.
We can't be talking in between. You have to wait. The public session starts at 10 o'clock. You're going to be able to answer any question you want about the architect and the engineer. That's it tonight. All right? Mr. Sachs, are you done with your engineer?
Yeah, I'm done with the engineer, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? All right, we're going to bring up the architect. Oh, okay, Mr. Fowler.
My report
Mike,
at a
I
later
didn't mean
date.
to skip your report, but I figured I would
You'll
cover
do
it.
the same
with
thing
the-
with Jay, you'll just at a later date?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
That's all, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
We didn't want you not to get in. All right. We're ready for the,
Yes, if we can bring up the
Thank you very
architect.
much.
thank you. Good evening. Introduce yourself, tell me where you live, and then we'll swear you in.
My name is Joseph Javier. Last name is spelled Javier. I live in Island, New Jersey, which is part of Woodbridge.
Can you give us your credentials, please?
Mr. Chairman, before that, I just need to swear him in.
Okay.
Place your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Your credentials, please.
I graduated from NJIT. I have a degree in management and a 5-year bachelor's degree in architecture. I got my license in 2004. Been practicing for 20 years, I guess. I also work full-time for the city of Jersey City. I'm the city architect, and this is my part-time
Need a
part-time
motion
work.
to accept his credentials.
Make a motion to accept his credentials.
Do I have a second? Give me a second.
All in favor?
Aye. What are you doing? Take my job?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Javier, I know you've got some exhibits that
Yes.
we're going to refer to. So why don't you describe, I know you have some elevations, and then we'll get into some of the floor plans.
These exhibits will eventually be available to the public, correct?
Well,
Correct.
they already are.
Oh, they are.
Let's just say,
Okay.
Mr. Sachs, are these one similar to the other? Are these the same plans that were submitted
Yes.
as part of the architectural
were.
plans? They look very similar. Okay.
They were.
Yeah, we submitted 8 sheets dated October 3rd of 2023. The first sheet is the cover sheet. Basically, it goes over the total area of the building by floor. First floor is 13,000 square feet. Second floor is 21,700 square feet. Third floor is about 9,000 square feet. And then, of course, you got the basement level, which has the garage, is about 44,000 square feet. On the cover sheet, again, it lists, it shows the images that we're trying to do for the building. Nighttime view on the lower left. And then you got the different views of the front elevation, the other pictures. And we're trying to design this, and will be designed per 2021 IBC code and all New Jersey code requirements, including 2010 ADA guidelines. The second sheet is SP1, site plan. Basically, we're showing the footprint of the building in relation to the property. And we meet all setback requirements for this building. And again, there's a view of the signage that will be in front along Ernson Road. That's on the lower right. And it shows you, again, about a night view, so you can see how the lighting is during the evening. Third sheet is A1, and that basically shows you the layout of the parking garage. And then on the right side of the sheet is the tower, which is the religious symbol for this this mosque. And there's a quick section to show you the height of the parking garage below.
And Mr. Javier, before you leave that, so there's obviously, just to give a little bit more detail, A1 details the 64 parking spaces, below ground parking spaces. It shows the, obviously the access ramp in, the access ramp out. Okay. It also shows a staircase.
Yes.
Okay. Is there an elevator proposed in this as well?
Yes.
Okay.
It would have to be in order to be fully ADA compliant, so that everybody who's
right.
disabled or on a wheelchair can access all floors of the building.
Okay. Any mechanicals proposed in the underground garage?
I believe most are on the roof.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about that when we get to that. All right.
Yes.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then in this parking garage is also on the lower left, there's a kitchen there. That's the main kitchen that will be, I guess, they'll do most of the cooking. And then, of course, in the far left is the funeral services, I guess, for storing the bodies.
Prep room, as we call it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then on the far right of the structure, there's also stairs. So you have 3 points of egress from the garage.
Okay.
The fourth sheet is the ground floor, or the main first floor of the building. And it shows you where all the prayer room and the basketball court, exercise room, and everything else that's going to be in this ground floor. So the center of the building will be the main entrance into the mosque. And then you got a main lobby area, which is about 2 stories. And then from there, you can go straight ahead into the prayer room for the male. And there's another section on the left side, which is also for the prayer for male. The male and female are separated. And then on the far right, you have the basketball court, which is a standard size basketball court. The gymnasium is about 155 feet long by 73 feet wide.
Anything else on the first floor, Mr. Javier?
Again, you have a kitchen area here on the ground floor on the lower left of the plan. And then you got the lockers and the bathrooms for the male. And then you got a single occupant for a female so that in case they need to use it, they don't have to go upstairs
Okay, so,
to use the female.
all right, so the first floor, we have the typical separation between men and women. So the men will have their own entrance, their own prayer hall, their own area to change, to take shoes off, and the women will have the same type of facility as well.
Correct. On the
Separate
second floor.
bathrooms, okay. So essentially, there's a separation between male and female activities, which is common in every mosque. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, and also there is a ramp in the front for those entering from the outside parking space. So you have a ramp on the left side of the stairs, front side of the stairs. And then those parking on the garage, you have the elevator to bring you up to the different floors.
All right, just one last question about the basketball court, because I heard a member of the public shout out how big is the basketball court, which I think you indicated, but that's just a regulation size basketball court.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Same thing as what you had in high school.
High school or a church, synagogue where we have similar facilities.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next sheet is A3, which is the proposed second floor. And up here you have the ladies' exercise room on the far right. The lobby below you can view from upstairs on the second floor. You have the ladies' prayer room on the center area. And then you have a glass that they can look down into the lower area where the male are praying. On the same area where the basketball court is, there's a running track there. So, and it's open also to, from the second floor, it's open down to the basketball court. But you do have a running track, just like a gymnasium, you have a running track around the basketball court. And then on the far left is a multi-purpose hall. And then you have the offices for the teachers or managers who's going to be running the facility, and then you have the classrooms.
How many classrooms are there?
I believe there are 4.
There's 4 classrooms, okay.
Yes, and then the other areas are lockers and of course the stairs.
All right, and how big is the multi-purpose room?
Multi-purpose room is about 50 by 50, almost a square.
Okay.
And it could be anything.
All right, so it's about 2,500 square feet.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that multi-purpose room could be used for youth education, adult education, any type of activity associated with the house of worship, other than ritual activities.
Correct.
Okay, so we're not going to conduct anything other than ritual activities in the actual prayer halls. Correct?
Yes.
All right, and again, that's standard with with every mosque.
Correct.
All right. So it's a fairly, so the multi-purpose room is about 2,500 square feet and could be used in connection with any purpose, any non-ritual purpose for this particular house of worship.
Correct. I mean, you could bring the 4 classroom into this, so it's a group session.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Sachs, if I may just clarify, I think I heard, and I might have heard it wrong, that there was 4 classrooms, but looking at the plans, it looks like there might be 5. I just want to make sure the record's clear on that.
Correct. There is 5.
Okay.
Yes, there are 5.
Okay. Okay. Any other, you have some other boards? You have one more board?
We have the 3rd floor on sheet A4. Most of it is for the female and youth activity. You have the youth ladies, girls on the right side. Again, the center area is open to below, so it's not as big as what it looks like. And the far left, you have the youth for the boys. And then I believe there's a cafeteria here on the front left lower area. And then, of course, you have your set of stairs that go from 3rd floor all the way down to the garage, as well as the elevator.
Right. How big is the cafeteria?
Cafeteria is about 18 by 20, roughly. It's an odd shape.
It's about 360 square feet.
Yes,
So it's about the size of most new kitchens these days.
correct. Well, it's there to serve the number of students that will be in the classroom.
Okay, if in fact they're served. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And how big is the other, you referenced two other rooms there as well. How large are those?
The youth room for the boys is about 33 by 51, so about 1,500. And then the girls' activity hall is 54 by 33.
All right, so again, about 1,500 square feet.
Yeah, about the same size.
Okay. You know, if you can go back to the first floor, and I just want to point it out to the board, there are what we call ablution rooms. If you can point those out. And that's for washing.
That's right here.
All right, so it's, well, is that the front of the building?
Yes, towards the front on the left side,
Okay, all right, and there's,
by where the bathrooms are.
all right, there's separate for male and female.
Yes, this is most of the ground floor is for male, except for one single occupant for a female.
All right. So basically, in summary then, so the first floor layout is strictly dedicated for ritual activities.
That's
We
correct.
have the two prayer halls, we have the two ablution rooms, you have bathrooms for male and female. I think you have a kitchen there as well, if I'm not mistaken, on the left.
Yes.
Okay. And then the second floor dedicated more towards, and the gymnasium as well on the first floor with the running track above it. Second floor dedicated to classrooms, approximately 5 classrooms. And then the third floor is just some multi-purpose rooms as well.
That's correct.
Okay. And again, let's put up the, let's just briefly, for the record, refer to the elevations, if you don't mind. I think, yeah, that one. That would be A6.
A6, but I don't believe we submitted this.
Okay, so we can mark that as A2.
Oh yeah, sorry, it was submitted.
It was submitted.
It's a last sheet
All
on the
right.
set.
All right, so it is submitted, so we don't need to mark it. It's labeled as A6.
So on the lower right shows the basketball court with the running track on the third floor.
Okay.
And then basically some elevations of the building.
Let's go through each elevation. So the one on the top left, which elevation is
That's the
that?
front elevation on the south side of the property.
So that's the elevation you would see from Urchin Road.
And
Okay,
then on the top right is the left side
okay.
of the.
So the top right is the side elevation.
Yes, on the left side
On
of
the
if
west
you're
side
facing
of the
building.
property. All right, how about the elevation below? What is that?
Elevation below is on the right side.
That's the right side elevation, so that would be the eastern side elevation.
That's correct.
All right, and what about the other elevation?
And then, of course, this is the back portion of the building.
All right, that's the rear elevation.
Yes.
Okay. And what is the height of the height of the structure and the height of the minaret?
The overall height of the structure is 40, except for the tower. The tower is about 69 feet.
Okay. All right. And you already I think you heard some testimony, or at least in my opening, that there'll be no call to prayer from that tower.
No, it's just there for symbolic.
It's there for symbolic purposes. If you've been to Muslim countries where there's quite a
Or
few
they
mosques.
do use it where they have some kind of signal or
Okay.
sound, but in this case, I believe the owner is not going to use it for that.
All right. So there's no sound emitted from that minaret. And it's more for symbolic nature, similar to a church spire
That's
or
correct.
other house of worship appurtenance. Okay. All right. Let me just a few more questions, and I'm going to give Mr. Fowler his due because I think he made a couple comments that maybe you'll cover, which you may have already. All right. So one of the questions Mr. Fowler raised is, does the dome or minaret allow for occupancy? I think I know the answer to that.
No,
Okay, all right. So you can't even access that.
you could
could,
for
but-
maintenance purposes. And again, this is not the final design. This will be designed later on based on community input or other input that we get from the town.
All right, but it does not provide for occupancy. And Mr. Chairman, I'm sure if the board wanted a condition that it would not be occupied, certainly want a condition that there'll be no call to prayer from there, we'll certainly agree to that. What about the rooftop? What about the mechanicals? You stated that they're on the rooftop.
Yes,
And will those be screened from view?
yes.
Okay.
And you won't even see it from the ground level.
All right, so
because of the
they'll
height
be
of the building.
screened either by parapet or located as such that you're not going to see them from any direction.
Correct. It's in fact on the lower roof of the second floor, so the third
Okay.
floor is blocking it from view.
Okay. Any thought about having solar panels on this building at all?
That's a possibility.
Okay. Or other green energy improvements? Certainly could
That's
consider
all
that.
up to the owner.
Okay, okay. All right. Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything further. Again, if there's comments, architectural, I'll address Mr. Cornell's report and Mr. Fowler's report when we come back here because I want to make sure we get all the testimony in. But I think we've covered anything that might have been specific.
Chairman, if I might, just on my report for the architect, something maybe you want to take a look at. The first floor figures that are shown on the plan, example, the first floor, it says 13,460. But if you measure the individual square footages that are on the plan for everything shown on the first floor, it doesn't equal that number. And the same is true for the second floor and the third floor. So I just would like you to maybe take a look at that to try to clarify why the numbers don't match.
Is that for, you're saying, is it greater or less?
It's a combination of both. For example, first floor, you say 13,460, but if you total the gents prayer number 1 and 2 in the basketball court, it's over 15,000. So it exceeds that. Plus there's other uses on the floor.
Okay.
It's the other one, if you look second floor, it says 21,000 square feet. If you total the square footage is shown on the second floor, it's a lot less than 21,000 square feet. So I just want to get a clear understanding of the footprint size, the size of all the individual uses, because that comes into play when you calculate the parking as well.
That's correct.
We'll do that.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fowler?
Mr. Chairman, just two questions, I believe. Just, you had said that the mechanicals would be screened by the fact that the front of the building is higher than the rear, but if you look at the property, the rear of the residents sit up high, and they're kind of looking right out at the building. We have a parapet along the rear of the building, so it's blocked from their view.
That's where we would have the screening.
So you have when you say screening, you mean screening on the building itself.
Yes. And then on the front, the third floor would screen the mechanical from the front.
Right. I was more concerned with the residents to the rear, that the parapet would be there screening those mechanicals.
Yes.
And then just the minaret, you said is 69 feet high or 59?
About 69.
So just one of the questions I had was, that it can have that height if it's needed to meet its intended purpose. So is it possible that it could be looked at and reduced to 59 feet? Does it need to be 69 feet high because it's rather imposing?
Yeah, we can look at that, Mike. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think there's a reason why it has to be a certain height, but obviously we'll report back at the next meeting on that.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else have any questions of the architect?
I do.
Go ahead.
The lighting on the side of the, come on. The lighting on the side of the building, are they only down lights or they point upward as well?
Most of it is going to be down lighting. And again, it's just ambient lighting. So again, the goal is to keep the lighting within the property. And, because some town has dark ordinance where you can't.
Will these lights that are on all the fascia elevations except for I'll call it the front of the building, which I think would be the south face,
Yes.
will they be on at nighttime?
During nighttime? I think after the place close, I guess it'll be shut down a little bit. Maybe
I'd like to know yes or no.
The answer is there'll be no lighting at night.
No lighting around the other elevations.
Yeah, I think the engineer testified that the only lighting might be security lighting, which would be activated by motion detector. But once the facility closes up for the night, all the lighting will be off.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there are notes on the engineering plan concerning hours for the lights. I don't know if you want to have your engineer review those at a later date, but it is indicated when the lights are going to be on and when they'll be off. It's on the plans.
Any other questions from board members?
Mr. Chairman, I thank Javier. I have nothing further at this point, so I know you want to open up to the public. We're certainly willing to accommodate that.
Go ahead.
Unless there's board questions, I'm sorry. Yes, okay.
On the basketball court, designs in the area, around the area for other uses other than just basketball?
Probably dodgeball. I mean, you know,
But
any indoor
non-sports?
activities, yeah. I mean, there could be
Just
other indoor
Completely
activities.
dedicated, just
It's a basketball
athletic
court.
sport?
Yeah, it's really just it's primarily a basketball court, but certainly I'm sure there's going to be other recreational uses, you know, that could be accommodated on a basketball court, so.
So your testimony is that the basketball court isn't going to be used for religious services?
No.
Okay.
No, the only place where you will have religious services is on the first floor in the 2 prayer halls.
All right. Since they're done, this is what we're going to do. Whoever comes up has to give their name, their address, where they live. You get 3 minutes to speak. We're only speaking on what these 2 gentlemen went over. If you have a question for the architect or the engineer, that's all we're going to do. Okay? We're here for an hour and a half to answer all these questions. Next time we'll come back. By the end of the meeting, we'll come back when the next meeting is going to be, and I don't think we're going to be able to come up with a place yet. I did send out a text to the mayor telling him that we want a bigger place, and we're gonna work on that. So with that being said, I'd like to keep this as orderly as possible. Remember, everybody's been waiting, so keep it to the 3 minutes and then move on. We're only talking about the architect and the engineer. Anybody want to speak? Motion to open the public?
Second.
All in favor? Motion to open to the public.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, just as a reminder, I know Mr. Chairman just said it, but you will be provided an opportunity to provide comments, not just questions of the witnesses, but that's going to be at the end, at the close of the application, after all the witnesses have been testified, after all questions have been made of the witnesses, then there will be an opportunity for the public to make public comments, meaning you identify potential testimony or information you want to provide to the board with regard to this application, but that's not what's happening right now. Right now is just questions of the 2 witnesses and the testimony that they made this evening.
Sir, you're first.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Fix that, so there we
Right
go.
up top?
There you
How's
go.
that? There
You're
we
doing
go.
good.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, board members, my name's Mike Delaney. I live at 4 Bilac Place in Parlin. I had just had 2 questions for Mr. Javier, if I could. The first one had to do with the height of the minaret. He said 69 feet. Is that to the top of the structure, or does that include, I think it's called a jamal on top, which is the 3 balls in the crescent? I apologize for the pronunciation, my first time.
It's to the top, not including that bull symbol that you're talking about. It's about 68 foot 7 inches.
Do we know what the total height would be?
I guess it's another, if you add that symbol, another 10 feet.
Okay. And is that going to be visible from Route 9?
I wouldn't know. Again, we can reduce it. This is not the final height. This is just a proposal.
Okay. My second question, I know I only have 3 minutes.
Okay, you're doing good.
Thank you. Had to do with Mr. Allegre brought up earlier. He was talking about maximum capacity. It's also for Mr. Javier. I can wait.
Okay, what's the second question?
Yeah, the second question, Mr. Allegre brought it up earlier. He talked about maximum capacity, but that was about some of, you know, the electrical, the sanitary sewer, for example. I'm curious about the maximum capacity of the prayer halls. If that number's been calculated, for example, as part of the fire code.
Well, we took the total area and divided by the number allowable for an assembly, and that's how we got the maximum capacity.
So do you have those numbers, the maximum capacities for the?
Yeah, I believe it's I think it was for the main meeting area, it was like 533, and then
The main, was that Gents Prayer Hall number 1?
yes.
Okay, I'm just using the categories from Mr. Cornell's letter. 531, you said?
About 533,
33, and how about Gents Prayer Hall number 2?
and that was about in the 300s.
300s, ish?
Yes.
And is it possible that,
Again, that's based on the area and you divide it by if you were standing room only, maximum,
Okay.
without the seats.
maximum capacity, right? And
Yes.
how about the ladies' prayer hall?
Ladies, prayer room, I think is a little less. It's like under 300.
Is there any way we can get like specific numbers here? Or, and I guess my last question would be, I wasn't sure what I heard earlier, and I apologize, on whether or not the multipurpose hall would be used for overflow in the event of that the prayer halls were full?
I can answer that question.
Sure.
No, it would not be. The only ritual activities will occur on the first
I
floor.
apologize if that's a dumb
Yeah.
question.
No, that's
I don't
okay.
know. Okay.
And in terms of capacity, we'll clarify maximum capacity
Okay.
when we return, Mr. Chairman.
And the purpose of all that was to determine whether or not those maximum capacities were taken into consideration with the parking.
Correct.
That's where I was going with that. And although Mr. Allegre sort of started with the maximum capacity, I apologize with the.
I think the traffic will be done with the next, parking will be done with traffic study, which will be the next
Which is
meeting.
next time.
Right. Okay.
Wonderful. I'll see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Javier.
Next. Anybody else want to speak?
Got a hand up in the left.
Mr. Come on, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Jim Robinson, Parlin.
I'm sorry, I just need your name.
Jim Robinson. Jim Robinson, Parlin, New Jersey, or Binson. I just have a technical question, Mr. Chairman. The board and members of the public have asked a number of excellent questions, and Mr. Sachs has responded to a number of them. Now, is that considered testimony? I know that when the witnesses testify, they testify under oath, and that is sworn. When Mr. Sachs testifies, in fact, your two last questions, he responded to. He said, I can answer that, and the witness did not answer, the witness who was sworn and under oath. Is Mr. Sachs's comments, is that considered testimony?
Yes, it's not considered testimony as you're thinking sworn testimony, but he's a legal representative of the applicant, so his comments are binding upon his client.
Okay.
Just as they would be in court or any other venue.
Okay, thank you very much. And one of the questions that was asked was about the basketball court and the religious area where the rituals will be, and Mr. Sachs responded, we're not going to conduct anything but ritual services in the prayer area. I think the question was actually the opposite of that, the question was, would religious ritual services be conducted anywhere other than the prayer area? And they are two entirely different questions. And so I would like Mr. Sachs responded to that, and that's important, I think, because it goes to parking, it goes to a number of things. So I think you should.
If I understand Mr. Robinson's question, believe the answer is no. So there'll be no ritual activities anywhere else in the building other than in the ritual prayer halls on the first floor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Sachs, you may want to clarify, you said the ritual service on the first floor. I believe you also testified there's ritual services on the second floor as well for the women.
I'm sorry, yes.
I just want to make sure the record's clear on that.
Exactly. I think the question.
Jim?
It does.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that, that's all. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Go ahead.
Good evening, board members. Good evening, Mr. Sachs.
Your name?
I'm Veena Savant. I am the Township Planner, Planning Director for Old Bridge Township, and I'm here to represent the township because, as you all know, the property is in close proximity to the municipal boundary. So the other side of Ernston Road is Old Bridge. I believe the board member.
She's just asking questions now, so we don't need to swear her in. She's not providing testimony at this moment. But if Ms. Sawant comes in at a later time when the public comment, and she wants to provide testimony on behalf of the township and against, then we'll swear her in. But at this point, it's only questions just as members of the public.
Okay. Mr. Khan. So from what I understand, the parking required for the house of worship is approximately 337.
That is correct, yes.
We're not
Correct.
talking about traffic tonight.
Parking.
Right, but you did testify about parking.
Yes.
Testify about parking, so my question is strictly related to his testimony.
You're just asking about the spaces that you didn't catch before? Okay.
So, Mr. Khan, based on the building code, the house of worship, the 10,000 square feet of house of worship can accommodate roughly 667 patrons, right?
Approximately, yeah.
15
It depends
square
upon the
feet,
occupancy,
right,
yes.
right. Based on the building code, so it's 15 square feet per person. I hear that the congregation is roughly 300. You testified that there currently are around 100 patrons. What happens to parking when that congregation grows from 100 to 300? What alternate plan do you have? Because you have 109 spaces. Ernston Road does not have on-street parking, so which means that the overflow parking typically would go on to the residential streets, whether it's Sayreville or Old Bridge. So it impacts Sayreville as much as Old Bridge. How would you address that?
Okay. Two things. First of all, there are 109 spaces, but we are doing 2 congregations. So automatically, if you look at it, it becomes 218 spaces for whatever number of people are coming for each. If it's 100 congregations, let's say it's 68-40 split. I mean, we have enough parking on site. Now, as far as if the congregation grow, I've been doing it for 30 years, and I did 3 mosques in Old Bridge, right? And I'm working on 2 more in Old Bridge.
Correct.
Okay, so there will be total about 4 or 5 of them.
Right.
And the reason for them is when congregation grows, they want convenience. So what they do is they, instead of, I mean, of course, they will start going to one of these existing mosques, but ultimately it's a convenience. If they want to do it, like they try to get another place just for their own congregation, and they split. So usually the congregation, I'm not saying that it's not going to be any growth, but based on Pew Research analysis or the data that was done, I would say a few years back, and we used that data for another mosque which was in litigation in Basking Ridge. That data says like it's 1 to 3% growth for a mosque like that. So if you extrapolate that 1 to 3%, it doesn't amount to that much. And usually what happens during that time, you will see another mosque coming up to attend for the congregants within that area.
So, but what I don't understand is typically you would take into account that growth when you're planning itself, right? Because I had the same question when you came to Old Bridge with the mosque, correct? When the site is 2.2, 2.5 acres, which is typical, I'm seeing, right? So why not look for a bigger site where the... Please remain quiet so that I can ask the right questions. So why not look for a site that is bigger, that can accommodate the parking, than, reverse engineer the question?
I think I'm going to respond to that because I think now we're getting more onto commentary. We're also getting into questions that can probably be better handled by the traffic engineer. But I guess I can editorialize as well, if I'm permitted, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the mosque may have a total membership of 300, but I wish every house of worship were able to get 100% attendance at their prayer facility. It just doesn't happen in today's world. I'll just use my own experience. My synagogue has maybe 300 members. We're lucky if we get 50 on a Friday night service. There's a disengagement, unfortunately, in today's society with organized religion. Now, I'm hoping this mosque is successful, but the question was asked before as to how many members, and we're being transparent about it. We're telling you what we believe the membership is, and probably will not grow much more. But again, as Mr. Khan indicated, We do have, the largest attendance is really during on the Fridays, Friday afternoons. We have 2 services. And certainly based upon what he testified to and what my traffic engineer will testify to, I believe we'll be able to demonstrate to the board that we have adequate parking. The question as to whether or not we should look for another site, I don't think that's ever the province of any applicant to ever answer. I mean, certainly this is the site we have, and this is what we would like to develop, and this is what we would like to build here. So.
I do have a few questions related to the use, but I'll hold them off till the planner testifies, because I'm sure those can be answered by Mr. Sachs too, but I will just hold them off. The one question I have for the architect, one last question. So typically, when you design a structure, right, you look at the surrounding land uses in the neighborhood. Have you seen any 3-story structures in the neighborhood that are 40 feet high?
No, I have not.
So when the planner testifies, Mr. Sachs, when it comes to addressing the positive and the negative criteria, I would definitely want to hear that response. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. My name is Ryan Rivera. I reside at 13 Parkway Place, Parlin, New Jersey. I speak on behalf of fellow neighbors. A lot of our concerns are, it was posted that this is going to be a 24-hour facility, correct? So what's going to be going on during that 24 facility?
The hours of operation are not 24 hours.
Yeah, I don't know where you saw it posted. It was 24 hours. Yeah. Maybe it was on Facebook, but that didn't come from us. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not a 24-hour facility. So.
Our major concern, as far also as you mentioned, the lights. Are they going to be bright enough to be affecting that neighborhood?
Their testimony so far is that the lights do not spill off the property.
That was one of our concerns.
Okay. And when the facility isn't used, the lights will be turned off except for safety lights that'll come on,
And you guys actually answered our question before as far as the noise.
In-house.
Yeah, so the speaker, there won't be any speaker or loud music or prayers.
No, there'll be no call to prayer that you would see generally with a mosque in other countries, for instance.
Okay.
And all the activities will be inside. So there'll be no activities outside. So all the noise will be contained inside the building.
I guess we'll just wait and see what happens then. Thank you.
Where'd the last guy go? Here we are. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, no problem. Good evening. Rob Applegate, 16 Vincent Street in the Parkway Homes area of Parlin. I have 2 questions. One.
Architect and engineer, right?
Huh?
They're of the architect and the engineer?
Yes.
Okay.
The architect talked about a morgue. One, that was never brought up. 2, when would those services be whenever there is a funeral?
Yeah, I think I talked about that at the beginning. First of all, there's a prep room, which I think he testified to. It's not a morgue.
He said morgue.
It's a preparation room.
Okay.
So a body would be brought there for a funeral service, but obviously it would go to a morgue, not a morgue, but it would probably go to a funeral home beforehand, and then the ritual funeral service will be there. And funerals, I think I indicated would be, hold on, I actually provided that information. I mean, a funeral could occur at any particular time, but it would be during normal business hours. So not going to be off hours, so to speak.
Question?
I guess so. And another, second question, I know you didn't say to talk about traffic, but it's just a quick question. The traffic, survey you guys did or whatever, doesn't that, usually call for those black tubings, wires across the roadway to read the traffic?
They will explain how they calculated everything.
Okay, because I drive on that road every day and there's never been one tube.
They could have somebody sitting there counting cars too.
That's it. Thank you.
Ma'am? Yeah, you. Whoop. You're next. Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Betty Panella. I live on Parkway Place, and my backyard borders this property. If I look out my kitchen window, I used to see an empty lot that had a lot of greenery in it. Okay, in the last couple of years, I look out there during service, I don't know what service, there have been over 100 cars parked in the backyards of the houses on Ernston Road. Looking out my window, I could see them. The lights flashing at evening time, children are going to sleep. Lights are flashing. My neighbors across the street are like, what are you doing in your backyard? Why are lights flashing in my windows? Now I hear I'm gonna have trees back there bordering. Are these adult trees that are gonna block this from my view? Is it gonna block the lights of the cars? That's what I wanna know. And if you have services ending 10:30, 11:30, 12:30 at night, depending on the moon, I don't know how you do things, but I've had problems there before they moved out into where they're over with cars and noise there late at night. The ordinance I thought was 10 o'clock for noise in Cerebral. Is that still true?
There is a noise ordinance, yes. Mr. Sachs?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There hasn't been any activity on that site for probably a year and a half.
Yes,
all right,
prior to that.
All right.
We can't talk about that because that's not part of the application. Whatever
But I
happened.
want to know what's going to stop this from shining in my backyard.
What they testified is they're gonna take the dirt from the bottom where they're gonna put the parking, make a berm. On top of the berm, they're gonna put trees. Those trees will be determined by the planner and our people. We may part of the condition that there be more and higher, so they will block your view. That's one of the things that we can ask for.
What happens to damage to my property when they're doing work on their property? An oak tree was taken down a few weeks ago. Dead branches from it fell on top of my shed. Now my shed has rips in it that I have to fix.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, we don't want to trespass on Ms. Pinella's property. I mean, we can't do that. So if in fact the board acts favorably for this application, we'll have to come up with a construction detail, a construction plan, which will detail when activities will occur. They're not going to occur in the evening. They're not going to occur before the hour when they can occur. And certainly we've got to make sure that we stay on our property for purposes of any construction.
Okay, I just want to know, once this building gets built, because it seems like it's going to get built no matter what anybody says, okay? It already seems like it's going to be built. They just have to figure out the fine tuning. Okay, if I pay taxes, I've been living in this house since 1961, okay? If my property and my lifestyle gets ruined because there's services at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and there's cars circling around, who do I complain to?
The code enforcement.
Code enforcement.
That's correct.
Okay, is that in this building?
No, it's in the building.
Forget about them. I've called on Arirang 1,000 times. They've done.
Okay, well, it's okay. Code enforcement. Thank you.
It's a restaurant. Don't worry. Anything too much from them.
Man with the hand up, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
There's a hand up for all. Okay, hang on. Do you want to speak? Okay, after her. Okay, sorry. I didn't see you over there. You're,
Hi,
one other question. You're after her.
Carol Esposito, Parlin, New Jersey. According to Sayreville Municipal Land Use Law, Section 26.65.2F, a discussion of site design and project location alternatives that were considered shall be provided. I'm asking what the alternatives were that were considered and why were they rejected?
I'm not going to respond to that this evening. I'll certainly have my planner speak about it. I'm not testifying, so my planner will address.
Okay, second part. According to Sayreville Municipal Land Use Law, Zoning Schedule 3, bulk regulation for houses of worship, the maximum lot coverage of a building should be 25%, or a building with pavement should be 45% combined. According to the application, the proposed application consists of 44.83% pavement, 21.27% building, for a grand total of 66.10 coverage. So I'm wondering, how does that size of the building that's been proposed by the architect fit with the law of Sayreville?
That is not correct, the way you interpret the coverages. The building coverage is a separate line item, and lot coverage includes the building coverage. So we are not asking for any variances for coverage, either for building coverage or lot coverage.
So, but on the application, they're listed as two separate numbers. So on the application, it's listed as two separate numbers, and you're saying the lot coverage, the pavement plus the building coverage, is what's equaling 44.83%?
Yeah, if you read the definition in the ordinances, they define like what constitutes lot coverage. And lot coverage constitutes the building coverage as well as any impervious coverage.
Okay.
So we're not asking for any variance.
Good.
One more thing. So we're not talking about parking. I think so. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nikki Voccio. I live on Dunlap Drive in Parlin, New Jersey. I did have a lot to say on parking and traffic, but I know I'm not allowed to speak about that, so I will speak on the testimony that was given. So if I'm correct, the waivers that were requested that he spoke about tonight was the setback of the parking spaces, the double curbing, the planted islands for parking areas, the waiver for street loading space and added loading space, and the waiver for 220 feet lane entrance for parking. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
So I'm just questioning, do we get waivers if I want to put a pool less than 10 feet from my backyard, from the fence? Do the people of Sayreville get waivers passed based on what their wants are instead of what the needs are for the safety of the community?
If they go to the zoning board and ask for relief, they can. You're asking a question, I'm telling you. That's the truth. You asked the question, I gave you the truth. Listen, I have a deck at the back of my house that didn't fit it. I didn't have the 25 feet. This is years ago. I went to 200 people, 200 feet away from me, got them all to sign on that they didn't care that I put a deck on because I only had.
About 200 people, but to sign on saying the deck was fine, right?
No.
Right.
Yeah,
So you
that's
can
not how-
come from the
no.
neighborhood and asking for it.
That's not how it works.
It's not how it works.
No, you notify.
You notify people that you're doing it. All you people have been, anybody that's 200 feet away from this mosque has been notified. That this is,
I wasn't.
where do you live? Do you live 200 feet away?
Yeah, I live on Frederick Place. I never got anything.
Frederick's way further than 200 feet away.
Said anybody 200 feet or away.
200 feet away.
Within
the
200 feet. 200 feet and inside.
Because that's the
That's the
law.
So. Your name?
Donald Scarano.
All right, go ahead.
Next, I want to know if anybody has contacted Masjid Al-Wali in Edison, because I have. And I know for a fact that they have an 18,500 square foot facility that they only asked for 50% parking spaces when they opened, but then initially asked for an additional 100 spaces after that, which means that that's likely going to happen here. You got a rebuttal? Go.
Well, we need to have a question. That was providing testimony. And that's something we
No,
do
the
later on.
question was, has anybody reached out to them for a comparison? Anyone? A comparison on this parking spaces. And being that I still can't do parking or traffic, give me one more moment. My next and last question. Mosque zoning laws. They were made years and years ago. We know this. The question is, the mosque is protected by the zoning laws. The community center is not. So what is going on here? What's the deal? Is the community center protected by the zoning laws? Because if so, then we don't have as much of a fight here. But if the community center is not protected by zoning laws, then only the prayer space should be looked at and even considered.
That's an excellent question. And in 2000, the federal government enacted a law known as the RLUIPA. And what that law states is that it provides protections for facilities and land use applications that are part of religious exercise. Now, normally, we all traditionally think about religious exercise as being contained to our church, to our synagogue, to a prayer hall. However, the federal government, in drafting this legislation and in the way the courts have interpreted it, have expanded that. And how it's been expanded is to state that what's protected under the law isn't just the place where you go in and you conduct your services. It's also what's necessary to maintain the religion. And so so schools, right? Schools are being able to educate, places to have Hebrew schools, CCD, Sunday school. Those are considered protected in buildings and applications that fall within the scope. And additionally, community centers that are aimed at fostering and developing religious life have those protections as well. So it is not, it's completely understandable. It's completely understandable why you would ask it. I agree with you. You know, you start hearing this and you say to yourself, you're like, wait a minute, I think that people should be able to pray where they, pray in their neighborhood and do what they want to do. But how do these other facilities and how do these other uses
that make it grow to 44,000 feet, correct?
Why are they part of it? And that's the reason why, ma'am. It's not about a law that's been passed in the township of Sayreville or in the state of New Jersey. We're operating under guidance that comes from federal law and decisions handed down by various circuit courts. And that's not a great answer. And I understand that, the board understands that. But unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not characterizing, that's the law. And so oftentimes, community centers that are part of religious life and development of the development of religious communities and the maintenance of religious activity do have those protections.
Two quick things and I'm done. In light of recent events, what's going on in the world and specifically in Sayreville, we are 1,000% in favor of prayer, just not a giant building in our backyard up against our backyard fence. That's one. Two, Arcist is a Sayreville-born rock and roll band. They're going to be at Stone Pony this Friday, so go out and check them out.
Next.
Good evening, Michael Cann.
Mike, come on up.
Good evening, Michael Cann, 3 Mansfield Avenue, East Brunswick, New Jersey. Grew up on Vincent Street, still have family there, so very much involved. I've got questions for the engineer, and then I have questions for the architect, if that's okay. First two questions would be, who approved the unpermitted improvements to the existing property?
I cannot answer that. I have no knowledge of that.
Honestly, I can't comment on that because there's still continuing litigation.
That's pending litigation, and I wouldn't recommend that anybody comment on
just
that.
to expedite. CME report claims a need for 377 parking spots on the site. You propose 109. Why are there not 377 parking spots on the property?
I'll have Mr. Khan answer that, but I think my traffic engineer probably is.
No, it's an engineer report. It's all.
Well, my traffic engineer, who is not here this evening, will testify at the next hearing about that. But I can certainly have Mr. Khan elaborate somewhat.
Yeah, there are a couple of reasons. One is because we think based on the applicant's membership at the mosque, we don't think that we will exceed that because we are proposing two prayer services. So 100, let's say for 109, it's 218 spaces. And we don't need that many spaces, to be honestly, but we are trying to maximize as much as we can. So that's pretty much, I would say.
When the 25-foot setback is imposed, are there still 109 parking spots now on the drawings?
Yes.
Okay. With the basement parking structure underneath and your underwater or underground detention system, reading the environmental report, groundwater between 48 and 122 inches. How deep will your retention tanks be? And how?
Actually, we did our own geotechnical because I don't know which report you were referring to.
The one that's posted on the website as the basis for our evening discussion.
Okay, we did our own geotechnical investigation, and based on our system is designed because by law or by regulations, your bottom of your system has to be 2 feet above the groundwater, and that's what we designed for. So we are, I mean, like the system itself is, I believe is the pipes that we are proposing is like, I think 30 or 36 inches pipe. There's a stone bed at the top and stone bed at the top.
So you have an 8-foot, 3?
Probably no, I would say like 6 feet, maybe within 6 feet.
And what is the basement floor level versus the site right now?
That's a different thing, like, because now you have to go and see like.
Pumping up is what you're saying into a tank that's now above your floor level. How does it permeate into the surrounding soils with your F4 soil type that you said you have?
I didn't get your question.
How are you pumping up into a cistern that's above the floor level?
We can do two things. We can do a pumping system. We can put a lift station to pump that water, or we can
where it's going to permeate out the bottom.
No, to the bigger system.
Okay.
There is a design thing. There is a design procedure that we have to follow, and that's what we did, though.
Is it Mr. McCann?
No, just Can.
Let Mike. Unfortunately, fortunately we have a court reporter here, but we can't talk over each other.
Understood.
Let him.
I'm excited. Excited to be able to voice my opinions. I feel it's important. The engineering footprint, I believe. What's the capacity of humans in the basketball court?
Of?
Basketball court facility.
I don't know.
12, and I didn't do the math. 12,000 roughly square feet. It's basically the same size as the two men's prayer halls. So another 800 and 900 some odd people as per the architect.
Just like, see, like.
What does the zoning?
Wait.
When we started.
Hang on.
This threw the people out because we were exceeding the capacity. The same thing happens there.
Okay.
If I can respond just briefly on that question. And I think I've indicated several times already. If the concerns of the board or concern of the public is that the basketball court gymnasium running track is going to be utilized for any other purpose other than recreational activity, it's not going to be utilized for anything other than recreational activity. So when you ask me what the capacity of a basketball court is, usually it's 5-on-5.
That's incorrect because there's no stadium seating in your drawings.
Well, again,
so it'll be all ground level.
It's a basketball court. It's going to be utilized as such. It may be utilized as a dodgeball court. Maybe it's going to be utilized as a volleyball court, but it's strictly for recreational activities. It's not for anything other than recreational activities.
One more question for the engineer.
Sure.
Who's responsible for the 18,000 square foot discrepancy between the engineering floor space on the drawings versus the engineering drawings for the site improvements? Is that engineering?
Actually, our numbers are different, like based on the architecture plans. Our numbers are strictly for the calculations for stormwater design. So like, I mean, I don't know, like the architect probably has I think there was a comment made that there is discrepancy in the total square footage.
It's in the CME report.
But again, based on our numbers are critical because that is the basis for us to design our stormwater management.
Okay.
So that's why I go with my number.
I have two questions for the architect, if I may.
Quick.
I do. Based upon the square footage of the basketball arena, because it's 2 floors, there is one fire escape out the right rear corner for an over 12,000 square foot facility. Where are other means of egress from that large facility if there are hundreds of people in there or 5-on-5 plus an excited crowd?
I believe we show it in our egress plan on one of the sheets.
One escape in the right rear corner.
Yes, and
Is that
also-
sufficient based on the
also
code of the
through
town?
front. Yeah, it's based on
Through the other layers of the building to get to the ground? Sorry.
The doors will be based on the actual use. So again, if
Correct.
it's 5-on-5, that's 10
But
people there.
it's not. It's a large basketball court.
Let him finish, all right? Because we need to get a transcript, so. Hold on 1 second answering that. We gotta plug in. Good?
Yeah. I'm sorry, go right ahead.
So you do have at least 2 means of egress in the front and 1 at the rear. And then if we are in violation, the building department will also comment on that if it's not enough egress. So we can easily add 1 on the left side if we have to.
Perfect. If you are required to add secondary egress from that back corner, will that increase your footprint on your lot?
Yes, it would.
Increasing impermeable surface?
Correct.
And coming back to the board for further
Oh, right now we
consideration
are
for
under,
space
so it's
versus
not
the
going to
site.
increase it by much. I mean, you're looking at it.
And the sidewalks that are missing?
The sidewalks there now shown. So everything's included in the calculation.
Thank you very much.
Sir? Ma'am, you're next. You're not after him. Him and then you. You're third. Save the best for last.
Peter Bobchin, 3 Denise Street, Parlin, New Jersey. If I heard right before, they said they were going to have weddings there?
Yes.
Okay, and is that just wedding ceremonies or?
Yes.
No wedding party?
No
No
reception.
reception.
Okay.
And that would be at 4 p.m. on a Saturday, Jim.
Now, as far as the construction, we're not dealing with a space like on Route 9. This is going to be surrounded by houses. And they're going to be digging deep enough where they're going to put a garage structure, and they're going to have supports. Have there been any studies with the impact it may have on surrounding houses, such as vibration or any problems like that could affect their structures?
Well, again, under the municipal land use law, we cannot cause any water issues on other properties. And certainly we cannot cause any compaction or structural issues on any other properties.
Well, my question is, has there been anything submitted to show how that's not going to happen? Because if you have an underground garage on a 3-story building, you're going to have some type of structural support. So they're going to have to dig deeper than even just that building. Than the garage. You're going to have to go deep. Like if I put a deck up, I got to go, 14 inches down? So how far down? 3 feet, sorry. How far down do they have to go for a structure like that? And are there going to be vibrations? I mean, he may say that they're intending not to, but in reality, how are they going to prevent that from happening?
Can we question
If I might, that's an item that's addressed in our report. We raised a question about having a soil study. We raised questions about special foundation structures that would come into play if they've got to drive piles or do something out of the ordinary. The need for a vibration study would be addressed when they submit that report.
Okay, my last question. They mentioned about, how many spaces are underground now? 64. And we talked about a ventilation system because there's going to be gas, carbon dioxide underneath there that's going to have to be blown out, right? Through some filtration system.
Wastewater off of the vehicles.
Right. So is there going to be a pollution study to see how that may affect the surrounding houses?
Sir, I'm not aware of any requirement for us to do a pollution study, but certainly we are going to have to provide safe ventilation out of this garage structure. Basically it's the same type of exhaust that would really be generated, in a surface parking lot as well, because what we're proposing is the ventilation will obviously vent out to the air. So.
And I'm sorry, I did have one more question. I understand.
Look, I know it's getting late, but just try to keep it down.
Just one quick question. This is zoned R7. I know religious institutions it's a conforming use, they have an exemption. But doesn't it still have to, the architecture and the structure, doesn't it still have to conform to the surrounding structures?
Well, to respond, the house of worship is a permitted use in your R7 zone. And certainly, obviously, we have to present plans for approval by this board or for review by this board, which are consistent with what a house of worship would look like. You know, the good thing about zoning in New Jersey is that most residential zones in the state of New Jersey do permit houses of worship. So we have churches, we have synagogues, we have Indian temples, we have Buddhist temples, we have mosques that are located within residential neighborhoods, and they are compatible with the surrounding area. You know, again, we're dealing with a height issue. Our height is acceptable. We don't need a height variance. There's an exception dealing with the appurtenance, which is the minaret, which is similar to a church steeple. So we're in compliance with that, sir.
The difference here is you're basically in people's backyards. You have what was a residential neighborhood. Even if one of the buildings was being used as a law office, it was still a residential style building. This is not going to be a residential style building. It's, you know, how does that conform to the other structures on that block?
I mean, it's certainly more of a comment. I'm going to have my planner who's going to testify as to these issues, certainly dealing with the
Hang on.
with those issues, sir.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to address his comment?
Just let me get her up here and then,
Thank you.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure. Just to address the gentleman's concerns about surrounding buildings and the effects on the construction, could we make it if the application is approved, could we make it a condition of the application that the surrounding structures have a precondition survey examined and any geotechnical instrumentation installed for the construction of the foundation to monitor the effects on the surrounding buildings?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the board has done that in the past where there were concerns about pile drivings or other type of out of the ordinary foundation construction parameters. So you could have a requirement that individual houses are surveyed to determine pre-development conditions and also have vibration monitoring done during construction to make sure that it's within required limits.
Do you actually have a problem with that?
I don't think so in theory, no. I mean, obviously I want to talk, I'd have to discuss it with my client, but I think it's not an unreasonable request.
Ma'am, state your name and where you're from.
Sure. Jennifer Edwards, 10 Vincent Street, Parlin. I wanted to ask some questions regarding the size. A lot of what I wanted to cover has been covered already, but I do want to add on to some things. The proposed building size is 44,391 square feet. Putting that into perspective, the White House is 55,000 square feet and situated on 18 acres of land, not 2.49 acres. My question is, I guess for the architect, and I know that he is just doing what he's being asked to do, but the mosque that's in Edison is 18,500 square feet on 2.2 acres, and it's in an industrial area. The Islamic Center of East Brunswick is 11,000 square feet on 1.99 acres in East Brunswick. I wanted to ask why 44,000 square feet and why in this particular location?
I think I've answered that question. I mean, it's
Actually, you haven't answered why 44,000 square feet.
Mr. Chairman, the testimony from the architect, he gave a description of the layout of the structure. That's the layout of the structure that's being proposed at this particular point in time. Well, I'm not going to comment any further. I understand your question, but I believe the applicant's architect just went through within the last hour what's contained on each floor. And yeah, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
It's very difficult to speak when I'm constantly being
interrupted. You can't have chatter. If he's speaking, you got to let him speak. You got to give everybody their due diligence. Go ahead, Mr. Sachs.
Thank you. as I was saying, the architect gave in great detail what's contained on each floor. These are rooms that are necessary for the operation of a mosque, for the operation of their ritual activities, for the operation of ancillary activities that your council spoke about in terms of what's generally associated with the house of worship. I mean, I'm not going to get on the soapbox, but I think many of us who are of differing faiths, and we all are of differing faiths, but we all have one thing in common if we're practicing a faith, is that there are ancillary activities associated with every house of worship. There are classrooms associated with it. There is a kitchen associated with it. There could be a gymnasium associated with it. There could be a swimming pool associated with it. These are normal accommodations that we see in houses of worship that were built 70, 80 years ago and houses of worship that are built today. So what's being proposed here is nothing out of the ordinary. This is not, by the way, this is not going to be a facility that's open to the public. So it's not going to be a community center. It is a house of worship. Again, Mr. Chairman, I'm getting interrupted every time
All right,
I speak.
listen. Come on, it's getting late. Let's get through this. Let him speak. Go ahead.
Okay. I've said what I've said, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
You have anything else?
With that said, the basketball court is 7,703 square feet. Exercise areas of another 2,449. I understand that those may have some inherent benefit, but wanted to just throw that out there. Locker rooms, 5 classrooms. If there are 15 to 20 children, why do we need 5 classrooms? Kitchens, there are multiple kitchens. Each floor has a kitchen. Is that a necessity? Cafeteria, I understand that's for students. Is this a school, or is it just going to be trying to do the math here, a 3-hour program on Sundays? 2,500 square foot multi-purpose room. It just seems like it's a little bit excessive. And especially since it won't be utilized for prayer, it just seems like something to question. So do you want to respond to that?
No, I don't need to respond. I mean,
Okay.
I understand you're making a comment. That's fine.
Okay. Sayreville Municipal Land Use Law. Item 26-96.1 applies to general design standards. This is the gentleman who spoke just before me brought this up, but I wanted to quote it. The design and layout of the building and parking areas provide an aesthetically pleasing design and efficient arrangement compatible with the character of the surrounding development. Exterior silhouettes, roof design, overhangs, arrangements of doors, entranceways, etc. Now, this is Sayreville Municipal Land Use Law. Obviously, we can all agree probably that it's a beautiful building, but it's definitely not going to be in accordance with this particular law. Sayreville Municipal Land Use Law 26-96.9, building appearance. In determining whether a proposed development is of such similar or dissimilar character to the prior existing buildings. Any proposed building which is either 25% larger in height, mass, or displacement shall be presumed dissimilar. These surrounding homes, not necessarily those being replaced, but the surrounding homes are all built roughly in the 1950s. They're all relatively small homes. I think we're pointing out that there's a dissimilarity there. And then, do you want to comment on that?
Well, it's good. I was just about to say, Mr. Chairman, we need to remember this is not comment. You have an opportunity to give your opinion and your opinion as to how the law applies later on. But if you have questions of the witnesses, please proceed.
Okay. Alrighty. So the last question, this is actually a question, in the engineering and I believe in the architecture. I know there was a discussion that there will be no sidewalks from Ernston Road. Given that the premise for building the mosque in this location is based upon it being convenient for the community, I can't really understand, and I realize that this was a Middlesex County thing, but I can't really understand the justification for not having sidewalks to protect anyone who's walking in from Ernston Road, number one, and also through the parking lot. I know we're going to get into traffic and parking, but every little bit with only 25 feet in between Ernston Road and parking is going to cause a disaster in traffic. So
Again, it's a comment. I don't know what to state. I don't know how to respond, ma'am, but the only thing I can tell you is with respect to the sidewalk on Ernston Road, the county does not require that, does not want it. I'll defer to Mr. Cornell if he feels a sidewalk is necessary and can convince the county. I have no issue with doing that.
Mr. Chairman, I think we had in our report, because you have the potential where the temple, or the mosque, they could go through and a congregant could buy a house in the adjacent street and want to walk. So there should be a path where they can walk from their house to the server without walking through the parking lot.
No,
That's
I
really where
agree.
the comment
So,
is.
I mean, that's something we can explore.
okay, thank you. Thank you all.
Ma'am? Evening.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Sandstrom. I live at 9 Parkway Place. I live directly across from Betty, so I thoroughly understand what she was talking about. And as far as lights, activities, noise, it was all hours of the night, depending upon when it was. They would have the makeshift parking lot set up, and on top of that, they would have people directing traffic and yelling, which would trigger all the dogs in the neighborhood, so the noise is...
Once again, these are questions of the witnesses. You're providing testimony about...
Oh, no, this is a noise question. So this is
All right,
all
well, then ask
noise.
right now, you're providing testimony or
I'm giving you your
comments
background.
on something that's outside of this
No,
application.
I'm giving you the background of what we went through.
The background is not what's before you.
Well, what's going to prevent that noise then?
That you can ask. You said what's going to prevent noise?
Yeah, I'm telling you the
moving forward,
background.
But yes.
Well, again, I think you were talking about noise when the site was being utilized last time, a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, certainly we're dealing now with a different project. We're dealing with a more controlled situation than you had in the past. I don't want to comment on what happened in the past because, again, that's pending litigation. All right. But certainly you'll hear all the testimony. You'll hear from our traffic engineer. You'll hear from our planner. I envision that we're going to have additional engineering testimony at the next hearing. And certainly, if you have any concerns, you can address it with those experts.
Okay.
Mr. Sachs, this witness, as well as Ms. Betty Pallane, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her name, have both raised concerns, I think, about hours of operation. And I think that you've thoroughly provided, with identifying the various uses when those hours would be. But I think for the benefit of the neighbors and the members of the public in attendance, could we just clarify what the overall hours of operation would be on this site so that the people can know?
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. So the hours of operation, and I'm going to not talk about Ramadan because Ramadan, it's one time a year, and it's a service that could go to 10:30. But generally, 7 days a week, it will be 6 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. All right. There are daily prayers that occur 5 times during the day. The first prayer is at 6 a.m. The last prayer is usually concluded by 8:30. There are Friday prayers from 12:15 to 12:45, 1:15 to 1:45. That's really the only ritual activities that will occur on site. There could be an occasional wedding, which we indicated would be on a Saturday afternoon about 4 o'clock with no reception. There could be an occasional funeral. Again, that could occur any day, but certainly it's going to be during business hours. There is Sunday school from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and that would be on Sundays, and then from Monday through Thursday, 5 to 6 p.m. So those are really the only hours of operation. You will, if you add all the hours up, if you look at a 24-hour day, for the most part, this site is not being utilized just like any other house of worship. We know that a Catholic church, a Protestant church, has services Saturday night, Sunday, a Jewish synagogue Friday night, Saturday morning. But for the most part, there's really very little activity that occurs in a house of worship other than those hours which I just specified.
So when exactly would the lighting levels go down?
Well, I think there was testimony from the engineer and from the architect as well, that the lights, once the facility closes at 8:30, the lights are out. And there might be a motion detector security light that's on. So that this will not be lit all night. It won't be a 24-hour facility. I don't know where that came from, but it's not a 24-hour facility. So the lights will be out.
And when will all the waivers that are being asked for being addressed?
Well, all right, so if I can just briefly, Mr. Chairman, talk about the waivers. The waivers are not variances. The waivers are design waivers, which are design exceptions from your design standards. They don't rise to the same level of as variance relief. And I guess Mr. Sordillo will tell me if I'm talking out of turn, but I don't think I am. Waivers are granted by this board. I will have the waivers that my engineer testified to. I will go into greater depth with the traffic engineer because they really pertain more to traffic.
Okay. And one last question. The residents over in the Parkway Home Development and on Ernston Road would like to know how many of the board members live over by us and have dealt with this already. Okay. Thank you.
None of them. Raise a hand. Raise a hand.
What does it matter?
Raise a hand. Who lives there?
Good evening, board. I just have one question because
You have to tell me your name and where
I
you
said
live.
it 4 times. Oh. Donald Scarano, 42 Frederick Place, Parlin, New Jersey.
I'm sorry, Thomas.
Donald Scarano. My one question is this. He says the membership's 300, right? We have 1,600 Muslims in the close vicinity. I know you, I know me. I'm going to a mosque here. I'm getting a brand new mosque away from my house, beautiful. What's to say that's not going to be 1,500 members and everybody congregates over? How do you control that? Who's going to be accountable for that? If that happens, so we approve and we say, okay, you can have 300, right? A year later, it's at 600. Who's accountable for that? Where are those cars going? What's going to be done to say, okay, we're only going to have 300? Are you going to put penalties and fines and fees on them every time somebody goes over 300? Who's got the accountability on this? Because the United States don't have accountability from the federal government all the way up to anybody. There's nobody for us. So if you can tell me you will be accountable for fining people, anybody over 300, hey, all the power to you. Go ahead. I want to know, how are we going to hold someone accountable for this when they do hit 301, 302? Because I know if I do something and I do it wrong once, do it wrong twice, I know I'm not going to be forgiven. I'm going to get thrown in jail. I'm going to get fined. Something's going to happen. How do we account them, make them accountable for them? It's not about a mosque. You can have a mosque. It's not about a religion. You can have a church, white, black, Asian, this, that. It don't matter. It's about accountability. How are we going to make them accountable for making it become a disaster? It might not be a disaster day 1, day 2. When things grow, fastest Muslim community, fastest religion growing. How are you going to tell me this community ain't going to grow past, or this congregation ain't going to grow past 300 people? How can you guarantee us that? If you're saying you're building it for 300, let's cap it at that number. 300 it is. They got their mosque. Everybody's happy. We're good. You're going to get fined after it. Okay, see if we like that. Why can't we do something? How are we being accountable for this? Seriously. How are we going to be accountable? Because nobody's ever accountable for anything.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify what was being brought up on that statement is, and Mr. Sachs, you can clarify, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they're proposing to this board, and I want the board to be clarified on this, that they're only having 300 membership. That's just what they currently have. There is no max on their membership that's being presented to us or that the board is considering. Sorry, let me just finish. What the board would have to consider and what the board and zoning moving forward is permitted occupancy. So the board's considered on this application is the building and whether it's appropriate for this site and whether it can be built in the site subject to the applicable zoning laws. After that, for occupancy, it's going to be built based on the size of the building. It's not going to be based on the membership. This board can't dictate that they can't have more than 300 members. But what happens is if the occupancy, as was just brought up before, there's certain occupancies for certain spaces, just like we're dealt with tonight here. And if they exceed that, then yes, that is a violation of state law, and that's an enforcement issue. And I can't say how it's going to be enforced, when it's going to be enforced, but it doesn't matter how many members of the congregation there are, because they could still have that many people to max capacity, even if they're not members of the congregation.
Understand.
So I just want to make sure that it's a clear point for the public and the board, because I know a lot of your point that you kept praising, what if they go to 101? That's not what we're talking about.
Because you build a 41,000 square foot place, you don't build it for 300, 400, 500, 600. I go to a 31,000 square foot place, I'm going to see 3,000, 4,000. They might not all be there, but it's going to grow. And I don't know if we can handle that. Honestly, it's.
Hello, Mike Weaver, 10 Parkway Place, Parlin, New Jersey. Well, I have questions. One is the R7 zoning says that they're only allowed to go 35 feet high and 2.5 stories. So how is it that you guys are going 69 feet?
I can answer some of
That's
that.
on 11A, Schedule 11A.
Yeah. The conditional use. House of worship is a conditional use. If you're building a house, let's say a single family home, yeah, that's the requirement, 35 feet. But if in this case is a conditional use house of worship, so the building height goes up to 40 feet and 3 stories.
Okay. Next thing, sewage. How many people are going to be inside this building, or is the building allotted for?
That's the calculation we're going to provide. Actually, we did provide it.
How many?
It doesn't matter. There are
over 1,000 people it's allotted for. So
engineering-
sewage coming down already on Ernston Road, the houses at Ernston Road and Parkway Place, the 2 corner houses, already have to have twice a year the town come out to pump, to clean it out a couple times a year, because it gets backed up from everything coming down Ernston, everything coming down from the Parkway homes. So now if you're going to add more sewage, what's going to happen? These people's houses are going to start getting flooded with sewage, backed up with sewage. So how is that going to affect things? Is the town going to fix the sewage lines, or are you guys going to pay for new sewage lines?
When we're going to apply for the permit, the utility authority or utility agency will look at it. If they feel like there is a problem, they will not issue the permit. If there is no problem, they will issue the permit.
Okay, and then the other thing is the sidewalks in front. I know that's been brought up, but that neighborhood there, when my daughter was growing up there, I walked up Ernston Road to bring her to school. If there's no curbs, no sidewalks, how do I walk my kid to school? How does anybody else in the neighborhood walk their kid to school up the sidewalk?
No, the sidewalk.
If they're going up to the UES.
Sorry, Ernston Road had a sidewalk. I think that the connection we were talking about from that sidewalk to the building, that was the connection we were talking about.
So there's going to be a sidewalk
There is a
on
sidewalk.
Ernston, but not from Ernston to the building. No sidewalk there. Okay.
Correct.
I think that's about it. I'll be back for one of the other meetings to state my complaints.
Sir? How are you?
I'm good. Good evening. My name's Joe Karmazin, 322 Ernston Road. I live directly across the street from the proposed mosque. Hey, Shamir. So I have a question about buses. Are there going to be buses for the basketball as well?
No buses proposed.
No buses for anything. Okay.
Let me clarify.
hold on,
There could be a
Mr. Sachs.
shuttle bus that will go during Eid or during Ramadan, but that's an off-site bus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was also curious about fire truck egress. It's my understanding a fire truck needs to get in there pretty easily and have to be able to turn around. From the proposed parking lot, it looks like it might be a tough sell, so I was wondering your thoughts.
Yeah, we provided a turning template for emergency vehicles, which I think has been reviewed. If there was any comment from the fire department, we didn't have it, but James, I don't know if you want to comment on it.
Okay. As far as the waivers or variance on the deacceleration lane. Now, I don't really want that, I'm going to be honest. But it's a safety issue, and it should be there. That's why that's a thing, I believe. What happens when they have an event and all the cars are pulling into there, and it's backed all the way up Ernston Road? How are emergency vehicles going to get down the street?
Yeah, let me respond to that. We do have police personnel who are there for Friday afternoon on a weekly basis, and they'll continue to be there. Same thing for Ramadan, same thing. Well, Eid wouldn't be there, but yes, if there's an event, there's going to be police there, and obviously they're trained in dealing with traffic flow and public safety.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can just add, just to answer that question, is that is a county road, so that's outside of the jurisdiction of this board. So even if we say you have to have it, if the county says no, that's the final word. We don't have
It's
the
funny
final
you
word.
say that because the county says they do whatever you guys say because we went to
Oh,
a bunch
really?
of those meetings. It's pretty funny.
But that is if the county doesn't want it, though, we can't force it. Is all the point I'm making.
Very good. As far as the entrances, now there's 2 entrances and 2 exits on the same. Normally, churches have one way in, one way out, or places of worship. So, doesn't that make more sense?
Well, again, I think the I'm getting my directions wrong here, but the exit going closer to Bordentown Avenue is only a right out. You cannot. It's not a full access exit, so you cannot make a left turn.
What about the one closer up towards Old Bridge? That you're going to be able to make a left because that's my driveway.
Current existing, like as of now, like there are about 3 or 4 curb cuts on that stretch or on that width of that where we're going to propose a new building. And we are closing 2 of them, and we're only proposing 2. And the way the circulation works with everything and the way the county likes us. And again, I think somebody asked like if there was any planning done before we come up with design. There were tons of different plans and different options that were run through different agencies, the county and everything. So this was the arrangement that the county would like us to follow. And that's what we are doing it. And again, county looks, again, it's a county jurisdiction. So they want to look at whatever their arrangement is.
Okay. I had a couple other questions. The classrooms, 5 proposed classrooms that could probably fit about 30 children, but you guys claim 30 total?
Well, presently at the site we're at now, we have maybe 15 or 20 children attending. So,
15 or
certainly there
20.
could be more.
Yeah, for 300 plus people.
Yeah, but right,
Going to have more than 15 children.
But they're normal size classrooms. I mean, obviously, you don't want to have young children with older children, but
right. I remember when it was operating, they would drop them off.
Yeah.
And constantly be coming and going. I remember. I also wanted to make a comment about the air quality that you guys briefly touched on. Well, I have the environmental impact assessment from the New Jersey, Saraville Borough, New Jersey Code ordinances. And it says miscellaneous, when warranted, an analysis shall be conducted of existing air quality and noise levels as prescribed by New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. When warranted, the board may also request these conditions on adjacent properties. So my concern is, especially for the Parkway homes, you put a ventilation system into the basement, it's all going to vent out of one side. If our good friend Kim has her window open, is all the exhaust going to go right to her window? This is something that needs to be thought about as far as building.
That's not how the ventilation system is designed, the way you explained. There is a code requirement, there is a permit requirements, there is a emission requirements. Right. Otherwise, it's not going to get a permit.
It should just be a fan. It'll be fans, right?
Yeah, but again, it has to have a chute where it captures it, and it has to discharge at certain height. So it's not something that if somebody's windows is open, everything is going to go in window. So there are standards that an mechanical engineer has to follow in order to get a permit and a CO for those things.
Okay, so what you're saying is it would probably come out of the roof at least 10 feet over the. Because that's usually venting codes.
Whatever is the code, yes.
Yeah,
they have to comply with the code requirements.
Okay. One of the biggest concerns I have is when they start their digging. And digging, foundation. So a lot of people's foundation, our houses are old. And I'm concerned about mine and my neighbor's foundations. This is a lot of, I'm in construction, so I understand the gravity of this kind of a project. I don't think a lot of people know how much mud and dirt's going to be dumped all over the streets, how much of a noise, even during the construction, this is going to create. And traffic. They're going to have to shut down the road, open the road, increase all the pipes, the wire. I understand. So is there any way we can have someone come out and do, at least for the residents that were notified within the 200 feet, to inspect our foundations to ensure nothing will happen during this, and then maybe a reinspection after they're completed? This way, if my foundation gets destroyed, I'm not liable here?
Usually of course, being a good neighbor, my client will probably do whatever he needs to do, whatever the town will say. But the scenario that you pictured or you portrayed, like as far as the foundation and this and that only happens, that doesn't happen unless you're digging right next to the foundation of your house. If you're blasting or if you're piling hammer.
If you have shale, I understand.
Yeah, so if you're doing
that's not
I have been in this business for over 30 years.
Me too.
Involved with a lot of big construction projects. So it's not something like by digging a backhoe, unless there's a big boulder in there that they have to break it down. Yeah, then might.
Yes.
But again, there is a influence area for the soils to carry those waves. If you read this, in the soil mechanics, there is a term called like influence zone. So if you're out of the influence zone, it's not going to affect your foundation. And we are almost 50 feet away from the property line. The house is further set back. So, of course, my client will do whatever he needs to do to satisfy you. But again, the picture that you're portraying is not going to happen for this project, in my professional opinion.
Okay, so I'll take that as a guarantee. And
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the same concern a previous gentleman had, I had asked as a condition of approval that we do perform pre-construction surveys of the homes that could be influenced, and that we'd have seismographs, vibration monitoring, because it's not just the digging, right? We're going to be paving the lot. We're going to use vibratory rollers out there, so you may experience some vibration. So as a condition of approval, I'm requesting that these geotechnical monitoring is in place.
That's great. Okay. The other, I guess the last concern I really have is the runoff. As you know, it's a lot of dirt over there right now, and it probably absorbs a lot. And when they pave everything, all this water is going to have to go somewhere. And I understand they did touch on some of the drainage, but I'm in the business and I understand how a 44,000 square feet catches a lot of water and dumps it in a significant place and it runs together. So I am really concerned about the flooding that this could possibly cause down Ernst Road. Because if today it was flooded on my way here on a bad rain, it gets pretty flooded down my sidewalks already. So that was another concern I had. Oh,
yeah. It's.
I don't think you have to curse.
It's a comment. I didn't curse, by
Not
the
you.
way.
He did.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But anyway, certainly we have to comply with the stormwater management rules and regulations as adopted by the state of New Jersey. We have to ensure that we are not creating any excess runoff off of our property onto adjacent properties. And certainly, I think we have provided stormwater reports for review by your staff. There are some comments that Mr. Cornell made. I'm sure we're going to comply with all of those technical recommendations.
Okay.
So.
Sorry, I had one last thing. I am still concerned about noise. When they were operating, car doors are very loud at 6 a.m., especially when you're still sleeping. There's not much noise outside. Those things carry. People talking outside carries. You hear those voices. I was able to hear their prayer on a megaphone sometimes earlier than 6 a.m. I know they proposed 6 a.m., but I've heard them there at like 4:30 before. So I really, really would like the noise looked into if that is possible. That's a request to you guys. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, you spoke. We got to get somebody else. No, it's all right. You had your chance. Anybody else? Ma'am, go ahead. I gotta be fair.
Sharon Rodas, 22nd Street, Sayreville. When is the next meeting that you have on the books for us to come for the traffic and safety? Will we be notified correctly? Because tonight, we thought we were going to be able to talk earlier. When is the next meeting? And how will you let us all know? Because we all want to come to all the meetings. Nobody knows.
Well, I think I know.
Okay.
Because I was told. I think the next meeting is May 1st.
May 1st,
May 1st.
okay. Please
Yeah, but
understand.
no, it's not the same time and same place. It may be, but it may not be. We're gonna try to get somewhere else. I already texted the mayor and told him that we had a problem tonight and that we need to find a bigger space. So we're gonna try to do that, even if it's, the one place that we didn't think about was the fire academy.
The Fire Academy?
We
I
could
mean,
look at-
I can ask them. Yeah.
We can ask the county.
But if we're having it at a different location, aren't they going to be noticed?
Yes.
Okay.
If, we would have to renotice everything if we're gonna change the venue.
Okay. Please understand, this is not about a mosque. This is about our town changing drastically. We can't move in this town as it is right now. Ernston Road is like a parking lot certain times of the day. It's so passionate to all of us because it's like you're dropping a building the size of a White House in a residential neighborhood. It's not what you're building. And we're so concerned about safety vehicles being able to get through Ernston Road. That's what everyone is talking about. And the school. How are school buses going to get out during the time of that worship time that you have? A lot of times that you have your important worship times is our work hours to go to work. We have to get up by Route 9.
You're asking about traffic and we're not gonna do that
Yes.
until, we're not gonna do that
When
until the
is
next
that
meeting.
meeting?
April 3rd.
It's
May 1st.
May
1st.
May 1st.
May 1st.
But we're talking about the design and the safety of things.
Yes, ma'am. Your questions, which are excellent questions about the timing, the intensity, the use, the number of trips, the trip generation, which is the planning term for what you're saying, which is trip generation and when that would be. That I imagine that's all going to be covered by Mr. Sachs's expert. And
But
and
all
as
of us who live in Sayreville already know
and
it's a disaster.
And that's one thing we always in planning in these applications, we always consider is that we have to separate what everybody knows anecdotally from living in a community and experiencing every day and make sure that that's part of the record. And so, this board is very focused on the parking and the traffic issue. That's why there's an additional report and analysis that's being done that will be thoroughly addressed. The questions about trip generation, what times the trips will happen, what are the peak times on that road will all be addressed. All of your questions will be addressed. And if they're not, then you come back up here and you ask them and you make sure it's part of the record. Because, what's important to remember is everything that you see every day, right? We can't presume that that's part of this record. It has to be testified to and it has to be brought up. And so these traffic reports focus on all of that data and will be available for you to review beforehand and ask every single question about. And I'm sure the board members are going to have a lot of questions about it too. But for purposes of tonight, architectural design standards aren't the appropriate time to talk about trip
I know,
generation,
but
traffic flow.
We've listened to all of you many hours tonight. We're holding so much in, please understand. We have not had a chance as a community to come forward.
You do, and you just have to be patient through the process. We're over and above doing things that we want to make sure that we get this right. That's why we hired another traffic study. So we could look at an independent traffic study and theirs. We're not just going to take theirs verbatim, okay? That all takes time, and then we have to sit and digest those reports, okay?
We see how the mosque started out so small in a little house and how big that grew. This has a possibility.
We can't talk about the past. We can only talk about the application that's before us, ma'am, okay?
Right.
So anything that happened prior, all the stuff that they did wrong or whatever happened, that's not up to us. That's going to be taken care of in another
Potential
venue.
of the growth of it. You have to keep that in mind when you're approving this. There could be more appropriate locations for something this size. Thank you.
All right. Start with the pad of paper. All right, it's 11:15. We are going to end tonight at 11. So if you have any other questions, please keep it quick and we'll try to get everybody in that we can. If not, we're going to do everything on May 1st.
My name is Drew Weingarth, Weingarth. I live in East Brunswick, New Jersey. Even though I have an East Brunswick address, with pride, I grew up in the Madison Park section of Parlin, which is Old Bridge. And I realize the applicant is applying in Saraville, but the zip code is 08859, and Parlin is considered a beautiful hybrid between the two towns. I believe there was testimony. And thank you all for what you do. I believe there was testimony on soil testing and a soil bearing. Could you just please, I believe you gave them two separate categories. Could you please be a little bit more specific about that?
Yeah, K3 and K4. There's the permeability rate, like how fast the water can transmit through the soil.
Is it possible for you to say, did you say you did soil bearing tests?
No,
for
not
that?
the bearing, no.
Okay.
Permeability.
Is based on the K3 and K4, can you say what the soil composition was based on that?
I would say it's like sandy soil.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been testified that, again, on the lights, I don't want to go over that again. You said it was down lights. I'm presuming per the law, it's meeting the proper number of candles based on the lighting. How are the lights being regulated? Is it on a timer or photocell?
Yeah, I think the lights will be on a timer to go off at 8:30 if that's when the facility closes. That'll be on a timer, I'm sure. And then there'll probably be some type of security lighting, which would be activated by movement.
Thank you very much. Again, it was stated that for weddings, there's no receptions, but yet there is a kitchen on site. So will the kitchen be utilized, the kitchen will or will not be utilized for a wedding?
No, it would not be utilized for a wedding. So there'll be, right, it's just a ceremony. And then obviously if there's a reception, it'll be off-site.
Thank you very much. I believe the architect talked about the landscaping. Per the construction on the site, I don't know how many number of trees will be.
I think the engineer testified to that, but.
I'm sorry.
What is the question?
If there's going to be trees being removed on site per whatever Saraville has per their law.
Yes.
What?
No, but they're just.
No,
talking
go
back
ahead.
to the back, yeah. 46 trees will be removed.
And will they be planting those trees elsewhere?
No, they will be removed. And we are planting over, I would say about over 100 trees, new trees throughout the site, plus the shrubs.
Thank you for that.
What size of calipers of the trees?
Yeah, I can give you that. I think they are 8 to 10 feet high and 3.5 inch in caliper.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was stated that there's going to be locker rooms, part of the gymnasium. I'm sorry if it was said. Are there showers affiliated with those locker rooms?
I believe there are.
And the showers, I am assuming, would be factored into the water usage analysis for. Thank you. Did the architect testify to a signage for this facility?
I think the engineer did that, yes.
And again, it's proper number of, for the ordinance within.
I think your 6 one does.
I don't believe we're seeking any variances for signage, are we?
Yes, you are. You are to move it back.
Distance, yes.
One variance.
Yeah.
I believe that's it. I really appreciate the clarification. And
Chairman, to answer the chairman, the tree size is 9 to 10 feet high, 3-inch caliber minimum.
Thank you.
I thank you all for your
Size
time.
tree. Thank you. All right, 10 minutes. Anybody else before? Anybody else? All right, you're up. You can go.
Mike Weaver, 10 Parkway Place, Berlin. I was up here before. I just have 2 quick questions.
1 second. Officer, can you see if anybody else wants to speak before we leave in the back? Are they, anybody in the back rooms? Go ahead.
I just have two quick questions. You didn't answer questions about when the times were for Ramadan. What are the time schedules for Ramadan?
Oh, I think I mentioned it in the beginning. I think it's 7 or 7:30 to 10:30.
What about the midnight?
Is there a midnight Ramadan?
There's no midnight service, no 1 a.m. service, no
No.
2 a.m. service?
No.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I know this is kind of what has to do with in the past, kind of, but
Well, if it does,
when I just want to know, when is the property going to be kind of like cleaned up? Because right now there's a tree laying on an electrical wire that fell a month and a half, 2 months ago that nobody's touched.
We'll address that. Yeah, we're not aware of any
Alright,
code
and-
violations, but yes, if there's an issue with that, we'll make sure
Yeah,
that we take a look
the
at it.
pine tree, right after they cut down the last tree, which was December 26th, somewhere between the 26th and 29th, they cut down a tree that was on lot 27, which is actually owned by the town, lot 27. So the tree was cut down, and then this tree fell about 2 weeks later on top of the electrical lines. All the lines going around the property right now have trees leaning on them or even falling down. So I want to know when some of this is going to be addressed.
We'll take a look
Because
at
it's
that, Mr.
safety
Chairman.
hazards.
He just said he'd address it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good evening. Anybody else? For all of you that are left, I want to thank you very much for being patient. I know this is a hard thing to get through, May 1st.
Motion, we close to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Yep, yep, we're done.
Oh, we got, hang on, we're not done. Hang on 1 second.
So I guess my question is this. I guess the advice I was given from your staff was that it was going to be May 1st. And I guess at this point, it's going to be at this location unless there's some alternate site
Then
that's,
we'll have to renotice.
we have to renotice, or will you publish that on the website? Because I'm not sure.
I think you have, legally, I think you're going to have to give notice to the 200 people if it's a new location, because it is now, they have to have notice
All right.
of it being in a different location, because we can post it, and we will.
All right.
But I don't
Larry,
think that.
what's
that
the
will-
alternative?
No, I guess there's not. But the only thing is this, obviously I have to do it 10 days before the hearing. So I'd like to know sooner than later.
I'm working on it already.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
sent the mayor a text. I'm not gonna call him of it, obviously, tonight, but tomorrow morning, we'll get back to you.
All right, that's
So
fine.
for members of the public, this application is being carried to May 1st. It will be at this location unless you see other notice. It would be notice either if you're within 200 feet, you receive it by the mail, or it will be posted on the website, and typical notice typical method that the township, the borough utilizes for notice of meetings. So otherwise it will be here unless you hear otherwise. I think that's the way to stand it.
And don't believe everything you read on the ring.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you
this
very
evening.
much.
I know it was not easy.
I hope
Thank
that
you.
Do we have to?
Okay, next is old business, new business, administrative matters. Our next meeting is April 17th. Jay?
Mr. Chairman, you have the South 9 Realty application that was carried from a prior hearing. That's scheduled for your next meeting.
Thank you. We need to open public again.
Motion to open to the public. Make a motion to open up the public.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to close the public.
Huh?
I gotta close the public first.
Close the public. I make a motion to close the public.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Thanks for hanging in there. We did okay.